The sensational and insanely fun anime adaptation of the popular manhwa series God of High School might have ended on a high note, but in no way does it spell the end for Jin Mori, Han Dewi, and Yu Mira's adventures. In fact, you'd easily find out that the God of High School's lore runs deep in the succeeding arcs that come after the anime's conclusion, and that's what we're here to tell you all about, guys. So strap in for a wild ride as we take you through the Jin Taejin and Sage Realm arcs of the wonderfully bonkers manhwa series God of High School. The Jin Taejin Arc. So, you might know this already, but the God of High School anime ended with a nice post-credits scene where we saw Jin Mori's legendary grandpa, Jin Taejin, missing an entire arm while held prisoner within the dungeons of Knox, the extremist group who plans on eliminating all other gods and their emissaries in the world. Well, the Jin Taejin arc goes back several decades in time, as we get transported to sometime in the 1940s, only referred to in the books as 1940X, during a time when North Korea sent spies to infiltrate South Korea. All in all, the North sent 38 operatives to sneak past the border, but ultimately only one was left alive when South Korean forces captured him. This as-yet unknown northern spy was an absolute beast too, as the South would discover when they pitted him against a gaggle of martial artists that he easily eliminated using the North's trademark ITF taekwondo. A few years would pass and this same North Korean spy would come across none other than Jin Taejin, and he'd finally fall at the hands of the master of renewal taekwondo. In his dying breath though, the spy made one final request, for Taejin to take care of his family in the North. Sometime later, Jin Taejin is tasked by the South Korean army to sneak into the North and check out a strange energy signature that their sensors have detected. Taejin follows orders and he gets given command of the fabled Tiger Squad, basically the series' South Korean army version of the Green Berets. Taejin and his crew would successfully reach the origin of the energy signature somewhere on Mount Baekdu, with the Tiger Squad easily eliminating the guards posted there. Upon checking out the site, Taejin and the squad can't figure out what the North has been up to, considering that they're not doing any nuclear bomb tests or fuel excavations on the site. Their search for the energy signature would, however, be interrupted when North Korean forces arrive at their location and surround them. Taejin and the Tiger Squad would again make easy work of these pawns. That is, until they encounter one particular North Korean soldier, a teenage boy who manages to kill Lee Jeong-do, one of the members of the Tiger Squad, by stabbing him with a machete. It'd only take a few seconds before it's revealed that these elite North Korean child soldiers are led by Moon Chun-shi, an infamous Northern Army instructor. Taejin would come face to face with Chun-shi and, not forgetting the vow he made to the North Korean spy he beat before, ask him right off the bat about what happened to the guy's family. Chun-shi reveals that the late spy's name was Lee Soo-hyuk, and after getting captured by the South was branded a traitor to the North. The Northern Army instructor thinks their conversation would leave Taejin and the Tiger Squad distracted, so he orders the child soldiers to attack. But, as you'd expect from Taejin, he single-handedly dispatches the kids in the blink of an eye before accosting Chun-shi. The Northern Army instructor tries to detonate a bomb that would kill them both, but Taejin severs his arm with a well-placed bare-handed chop before finishing the job. It's revealed that Soo-hyuk did indeed make a deal with South Korea, ensuring his family's safety in exchange for teaching the South about ITF taekwondo. Taejin then tasks Lee Yoon-do, Lee Gyeong-do's brother, and another member of the Tiger Squad to go to a specific address to check on Soo-hyuk's family while the rest of Tiger Squad investigate Mount Baekdu. Unbeknownst to them, an imposing figure wearing tiger-striped pants and gloves is stalking them from afar. Taejin and the rest of the Tiger Squad enter a cave and arrive at a sealed door. Preoccupied, Taejin barely notices that other soldiers are watching them from the shadows. Meanwhile, Lee Yoon-do travels to Soo-hyuk's family's known whereabouts, realizing that Taejin gave him this task to keep his mind off his brother's death. But his mission would remain unfulfilled as snipers take him down. Back in the cave, Tiger Squad manages to open the sealed door only to find out that the same tiger stripe-clad figure from earlier is housed within it. And it's not human. It's a giant simian creature that easily injures Taejin's comrades once it gets free. Taejin sees this and tells his men that he'll take care of the beast. He leads the creature back to its room and a good old-fashioned duel between the two ensues. But instead of staying on guard, the rest of Tiger Squad chooses to watch and be amazed by Taejin and the creature's heavyweight bout, which causes them to fail to notice the enemy group closing in on them. The enemy forces take advantage of the element of surprise and start picking off members of the Tiger Squad just outside the room within the cave. Still, they discover that these enemies aren't from the North, they're from the USA, and they have their own elite units who seemingly are able to make quick work of Tiger Squad's patented renewal taekwondo practitioners. Meanwhile, Taejin is still busy squaring up to the ape-like beast and notices something curious. The creature is able to adapt to his fighting style and copy it. Their duel is interrupted when the Americans throw grenades inside the room. Thinking that both Taejin and the Beast are out of the picture, the interlopers carry on their real mission to retrieve a giant green stone buried underneath the cave. They successfully dig it out, but Taejin gets back on his feet before they can leave and shows the Yanks what it means to mess with a true master of renewal taekwondo. Suffice it to say that heads literally started flying, especially when Taejin unleashed his renewal taekwondo, backdo technique, and kneed the noggin off of one of the Americans' elite soldiers. While all this is happening though, everyone fails to notice that the ape man in the other room is gathering energy, which it then unleashes in a mushroom cloud forming explosion. No one except a handful of Tiger Squad members and Taejin survive the blast in the aftermath, and once they recover, they notice that the Simeon Beast is charging up more energy for another blowout. Seeing this, Tiger Squad member Shoduk Bae rescues his remaining comrades and throws them into a trench to protect them in an explosion, even hurling Taejin into it while he was about ready to charge at the creature again. Another explosion occurs and Duckbait takes the brunt of it. He ends up dying, and this time Taejin's only left with 5 remaining Tiger Squad members. So yeah, it's safe to say that this mission wasn't going as planned. Taejin and his men bide their time in the trench, and he swears to himself that he's going to make the South Korean government pay for tricking them into this suicide mission. While stewing in his thoughts, Taejin meets a young Tiger Squad member named Park Il-tae, Yupyo's grandpa. Taejin takes a liking to the kid when he finds out that Il-tae is a master of the old-fashioned martial art Taekwon. The young man is writing a letter to his wife and child back home just in case he doesn't make it through the mission, but Taejin assures him that they'll pull through. One of the remaining Tiger Squad members notices that the ape man is starting to move, and Taejin springs into action. It's round 2, baby. The proverbial bell rings and we're treated to some fantastic fisticuffs between Taejin and the ape man. It's an even bout too, as they trade blows like they're fighting for a 300k bonus. But Taejin's smart, so he pulls away from the pocket and unleashes a superb low kick called Dragon Catcher that sends the monkey man flying. Meanwhile, the rest of the Tiger Squad are hiding in the trench. Il-tae asks his comrades what they should do, to which one of his companions replies that they should stay put. However, they notice that another one of their fellow squad members is looking for something a short distance away. The guy starts digging and uncovers a black box, but a hand bursts out from the rubble before he can pull the thing out and drags him under the ground before snapping his bones. Curiosity killed the tiger, we guess. Il-tae and the others see this, and one of the elite American soldiers emerges from the ground. The surviving Tiger Squad members pounce on the guy and break his helmet, only to reveal that it's Sergeant Choi Do-ha, another Tiger Squad member who turns out to be a double agent working with the Yankees. Choi kills another Tiger Squad member, and Il-tae asks him why he's doing this, to which the turncoat replies, "I love USA." Well, you can't argue with Uncle Sam and apple pie after all. Il-tae decides to do something about it, and he gets into a duel with Choi. In the meantime, Taejin and the ape man continue their grueling battle. The Tiger Squad leader gets the upper hand when he uses renewal taekwondo, sonic punch and kick, but the monster retaliates by charging up energy and growing the size of a 3-story building before going on the offensive. Back at Il-tae, he and Choi are busy trying to kill each other with intense striking from both sides. The Tiger Squad corporal gets the upper hand when he connects with a cracking Taekwon kick to Choi's skull before hitting the traitor with a solid elbow to the gut. Il-tae is just about ready to knock the lights out of Choi when the armored ex-Tiger Squad member unleashes an energy beam from his chest power reactor, which blows a hole right in Il-tae's torso. Taejin, on the other hand, gets back on his feet after the giant ape creature steps on him and prepares for a counterattack. Il-tae is ready to accept his fate when, out of nowhere, Lee Yoon-do comes up clutch and smashes Choi's power reactor with a rock. Yoon-do gets knocked out from the reactor's small burst, and Il-tae takes the opportunity to put a stop to the cheeseburger-loving traitor once and for all. Choi reveals that aside from the unsurprisingly American performance-enhancing armor that he's got, he's still a practitioner of renewal taekwondo. But it doesn't do anything, because Il-tae is so done with him. The Tiger Squad corporal masterfully parries Choi's kick before unleashing Taekwon, Flame Pillar, and incinerating his enemy. Back at Taejin, the leader of the Tiger Squad fully recovers and kicks the giant simian creature in the calf, a kick so hard that it severs the monster's leg. The monkey man starts to limp before falling face first into the ground, but it's not down for the count yet as it goes full-on kaiju and unleashes an energy beam from its mouth. But this is Taejin, people. He literally gives the laws of physics the finger and literally kicks the energy beam into oblivion. The preceding attack leaves the ape-man spent, and it shrinks back into its original size before getting into another grueling boxing match with Taejin. Ultimately, the Tiger Squad leader proves that he's got more gas in the tank, as he uses his trademark 3-hit combo to knock out the beast. By the time the dust is settled, Il-tae ends up dying from the injuries he sustained after fighting Choi. Meanwhile, the ape-man regains consciousness and sees that Taejin is watching it closely. The simian creature walks away and Taejin follows it, but he stops when he discovers that the rest of Tiger Squad are dead. A dying Lee-Yoon-do calls for him and explains what happened before revealing that he was able to accomplish his mission and discover that Soo-hyuk's wife and child are alive. It turns out Soo-hyuk's wife was forced into hard labor after the North discovered her husband's capture. As for the kid, well, Yoon-do doesn't mention anything about it further, instead telling Tae-jin to take care of his mom when he gets back to the south. Yoon-do passes away and Tae-jin finds out that Il-tae's fallen too. He turns toward the ape creature, who's recovered the same box that one of the Tiger Squad members dug out earlier. The monkey man opens it and reveals the same stone that the Americans retrieved when all this started in the cave. And curiously enough, the stone contains a sleeping baby Jin Mori inside it. The creature offers the stone containing Jin Mori to Tae-jin and he accepts it. Right after, the ape man starts to disintegrate and turn into ash. Flash forward to the present day and we find out that Tae-jin is actually telling this story to Park Hae-mujin while they're held captive inside Knox's hideout. The ex-Tiger Squad leader explains that the monkey creature was actually made from the fur of the Monkey King, and more importantly, that Jin Mori is its other half. Mujin asks when exactly Mori awakened from the stone, and Tae-jin tells him that it all happened 17 years ago when he faced off against the Six. It's also revealed that the whole legend of Tae-jin beating each and every one of the Six was all thanks to Mori's awakening, causing an explosion in the area that knocked everyone out except for Tae-jin. Mujin even takes a poke at Tae-jin and tells him he's a liar. But in all fairness, Tae-jin did beat 5 out of the 6, and he would have finished the job if Mori didn't bring down the whole place and did it for him. Tae-jin also reveals that the South Korean government branded Tiger Squad as traitors after he survived the ill-fated mission on Mount Baekdu. Of course, Tae-jin didn't let this slide. He paid his old superior a visit and told him to reverse that order and make things right for the rest of his fallen comrades, or else. In the end, Tae-jin was able to help the late Tiger Squad members' dreams be realized, and as for him, well, he took on Jin Mori as his own and trained him in the ways of renewal taekwondo. And in the final scenes of the storyline, Jin Tae-jin accepts the fact that Knox will use him against Mori. But he's not worried, he trained the boy well, and he welcomes the opportunity to go head-to-head with his grandson in the future. The Sage Realm Arc. God of High School continues and we go back to the present day, right after the events that we see at the end of the anime's first season. But to you guys who've only seen that beautifully animated series, you've probably just seen glimpses of the aftermath of Knox's failed attempt to retrieve the key that will kill gods and Jin Mori's fight with Jagal Tech. Well, the Sage Realm kicks off by giving us fans a much more detailed and fleshed out look at exactly the immediate consequences of those aforementioned events. And this is all told through the eyes of the bespectacled former GOH combatant Baek Sung-chul, who's trying to uncover the truth behind what happened. Right out of the gate, we find out that Park Mujin has been arrested, that Prosecutor Kang is dead, and most importantly, Mori, Daewoo, Mira, and the commissioners of the God of High School tournament are now wanted fugitives. Beck gives a lowdown on what happened to South Korea as a whole too, right after Knox's failed attack 3 months ago. 1. The nuclear blast essentially turned Seoul into a refugee camp. 2. Turmoil abounded as mass bankruptcies happened and riots erupted throughout the city. And most foreboding of all, the public became aware of a mysterious group known as Knox. See guys, in the aftermath of Knox's encounter with Mori and the GOH organizers, they went on a more political route and started to paint themselves as a charity group to sway public sentiment towards their way. Ultimately, Knox, fronted by Sang Mandok, were able to worm their way into governmental positions. During that time, Mujin spoke out against Mandok and Knox, but it was too late. The people of Seoul had already drunk the Kool-Aid and instead branded Mujin as a traitor to his country, which led to his arrest. Beck remembers the strange creature that appeared in the skies of Seoul during Knox's confrontation with Mujin's group in the past, and how its residents were magically transported to Gangwon province then. Plus, there was the gigantic pillar that emerged in the horizon at the time. So, Beck approaches the pillar and finds a crater where the battle between Mori's group and Jagal had occurred. This then prompts him to head to Gangwon province to investigate further, especially when he remembers news of a giant sword falling from the sky during the incident. At Gangwon, Beck investigates another waterlogged crater, and he's able to gather bits and pieces of what happened there. And it's revealed this is the place where Tae-jin faced off against the agents of Knox that ultimately led to the legendary hero's capture. And that crater? Yeah, our man Tae-jin made that happen when he unleashed a devastating renewal taekwondo kick that basically turned part of the mountain into a tunnel, taking out several Knox members with it. Now, Beck has no idea who exactly threw down in this area, but he can tell that it was one guy against a group of assailants, and that the gang initiated a powerful attack against their single opponent. And it's here that we find out that Knox summoned a giant sword from the heavens to strike down Tae-jin, but he was able to repel this with another patented renewal taekwondo kick. However, this left him open for Mandek to use his powers and hit Taejin's left arm before using a technique called Divine Punishment to finish the job. But come on guys, if there's one thing we've established at this point, Taejin is beast. Suffice it to say that he wasn't one bit impressed with Mandek's tricks, as he shattered the myriad swords the Knox Bishop summoned with Divine Punishment. And like the real badass that he is, Taejin amputated the arm that Mandek was able to hit earlier to make sure any connection between them is severed. In the present, Beck speculates that the single combatant who fought in this place probably had his balance hampered when they amputated their arm, and he was right. Because during Taejin's fight with Knox, he was ultimately overpowered after losing an appendage, which then led to his capture. Back in the present, Beck doesn't notice a hooded figure approaching him from behind. The hooded figure reveals himself to be Nurse B, whose real name is Sai, and she asks Beck for help. The prodigious man correctly guesses that Park Moonjin has escaped and agrees to help Sai. For a price, that is. Later, Beck and Sai meet with everyone's favorite hardworking everyman, Jin Pum-gwang, and his GOH teammate, Jang Jang-mi, who are studying for school inside a dilapidated building. But academics aren't the only thing being studied here, as Beck finds out that they're going to be focusing on Charyuk too, aka Borrowed Power. Somewhere else, Kang Man-suk, the brutal ITF Taekwondo user whom Jin Mori defeated in the GOH tournament, finally gets released from prison. He's become a shell of his former self since his battle with Mori, but Judge P convinces him to get his act together and join their cause. This prompts Man-suk to rechannel his inner badass and go with Ms. P. At Na Bong-chim's estate, former GOH combatant Go Gam-do pleads with the master of acupuncture to help heal his master. Bong-chim accepts and takes in Gam-do. In a different part of the city, the formerly flamboyant GOH representative Gyeom-ji has decided to leave the life of a martial artist and start working at their family's grocery store. However, you can take the fighter out of the fight, but you can't take the fight out of the fighter, as Judge B pays Gyeom-ji a visit and entices him to join a revolution. Gyeom-ji literally rips his uniform off and reveals his awesome mankini after accepting Judge B's offer. Elsewhere, Judge S, aka Mung Gi-ju, speaks with a member of the Six, Kim Du-sik, to try and draft him the way the other judges did with Man-suk, Gyeom-ji, Beck, and the others. Du-sik refuses and instead wants to throw down with Judge S, but he declines. When Gi-ju leaves, however, Du-sik plans on ratting him out to the authorities to get the 100,000 won reward for his capture. And by authorities, we mean Knox, because remember, their cult has pretty much taken over the city at this point. It doesn't take long after Judge S steps out of Du-sik's office that a gang of Knox's worshiper-rank thugs descend on him. He knows Du-sik snitched on him, but there's no time for that, because now S has to deal with the appearance of Knox priest Axley after he arrived on the battlefield and revived the fallen worshippers. Knowing the situation is dire, Gi-ju summons his national treasure, Sacred Sword Walmung, to defend against his attackers. Axley, on the other hand, calls forth his own national treasure, Durandal and the two crossed blades. Judge S proves to be the better swordsman as he disarms Durandal from Axley, but he's sniped with a bullet through the shoulder before he can defeat the Knox priest. Somewhere far away, Knox priest Saturn is revealed to be providing backup to Axley and the other cultists, using her crucifix-shaped rifle to take down Gi-ju. With Gi-ju recovering from the bullet he took, Axley manages to regroup with his men and coordinate a full frontal assault. But Judge S is no stranger to fights like this. He's aware that his enemies will think that Saturn is successfully hindering his range, and he's going to use that to his advantage. Axley crosses swords with Gi-ju again. Saturn gets her target within her crosshairs while at her perch and pulls the trigger. Gi-ju notices this and activates a force field, but the bullet still pierces through the barrier. All hope isn't lost for Judge S though, as Ymira arrives at Saturn's perch while riding her flying horse Toma to provide backup. Saturn tries to get in a melee with the Moonlight Sword style master, but Mira cleaves her crucifix rifle easily with a technique called Square Sky Spear. But the Knox priestess isn't out of the fight yet, as she throws away her weapon, finds an opening in Mira's defense, and knees her in the gut. Saturn's about to follow up with a cracking left straight to Mira's face, but she gets thrown back when Han Dae-wi and Gi-ju arrive to aid Mira. Knox henchmen start giving chase, so Mira, Dae-wi, and Gi-ju go for a tactical retreat to the old Samsung station, with Dae-wi masking their escape with his mist technique. Saturn recovers though and sees her targets getting away, so she magically repairs her crucifix rifle and loads it up with a whole lot of teddy bear ammo. The priestess pulls the trigger and makes it rain bullets around Gi-ju, Dae-wi, and Mira. Gi-ju successfully repels several of them, but one of them hits Mira. The GOH judge does her a solid though and instantly heals the Moonlight Swordswoman. Suddenly, Gi-ju is forced to stop in his tracks and realizes that he got caught inside a trap. He turns around to see another rope Knox member getting ready to hurl large metal bars at him. Dae-wi and Mira come back for Gi-ju and they find a way to make the retreat easier, with Mira slicing a hole through the concrete street so that they can continue their escape underground. Still, the Knox agents won't let up and they continue their pursuit of the three heroes. Axley catches up to them, which forces Giju to face him and the worshippers again and hold the line to allow Daewoo and Mira to escape. Saturn continues to shoot at Mira and Daewoo, but the two eventually reach Samsung Station. However, they're surprised to find out that the traitorous Judge R is waiting for them there. Shortly after, Axley, another Knox priest, and the worshippers arrive at the scene with Giju's unconscious body in tow. One of the priests asks them where the magical artifact Jachundasong is. Daewoo speaks to Giju and asks him if the setup is enough, and it's revealed that the Judge S was just pretending to be knocked out before summoning lightning to blind every Knox member in the vicinity. And as the cultists try to recover, Jin Mori creeps through the tunnel before commanding his Yoibo, the Monkey King's legendary weapon, also known as the Rui Jingo Bang, to grow in size. This causes a tremor so powerful that the entire city shakes above ground. Just a few moments ago, other Knox priests such as Gaudi, Kapu, Beto Beto, Renane, the Beimei, and Chuba have gathered less to come up with a plan to help their fellow cultists than to criticize Axley and his crew for taking so long with the mission. In the end, though, they decide to back the other Knox members at Samsung Station only to eat Jin Mori's Yoibo and get instantly owned once he makes it grow in size. Above ground, the people of Seoul are taken by surprise by the sudden earthquake. Meanwhile, Jin Mori just laid waste to nearly all of the Knox cultists at Samsung Station, killing 3 out of the 7 priests present there and basically eradicating 80% of the fanatics. Giju, Daewoo, and Mira are safe though, as the former tournament judge summoned a barrier to protect them from the impact of Yoibo. Jin Mori wastes no time and barrages the remaining worshippers, giving each one severe head trauma with every smack of Yoibo. The Knox worshippers think they stand a chance, so they start to surround Mori, but it's easy money for the Monkey King incarnate, as he downs them in quick succession with Beggar's Song Dance and Nabong Acupuncture Blood Vessel Seal. More worshippers gang up on Mori, so he just jumps up and increases Yoibo's size to crush them all. But Mori notices that using Yoibo and his Monkey King form takes a toll on his body. He comments on how he still can't maintain it for an extended period of time. But no worries, it's time to literally kick the crap out of Knox with renewal taekwondo. The Knox bishop joins the fray and attacks Mori, but he dodges by using Yoibo as a pole and climbing up. Curiously, the Knox priest also knows how to use renewal taekwondo, and they end up in a deadlock with Mori. The bishop uses a technique called right flamingo and Mori dodges it in the nick of time, with the attacker only managing to rip the jacket around his waist. They then take off the robe and Jin Mori is surprised to find out that it's a woman underneath all that cloth. The purple-haired, eye-patch-wearing Knox cultist then calls Mori a Ryu and even refers to him as a South Korean comrade before continuing their duel. In the meantime, Guji is busy fending off Axley and a couple of other Knox priests, while Saturn starts spraying bullets toward Daewoo and Mira. A short distance away, the former GOH judge and traitor once known as Judge R summons a whirlwind in the palm of his hand to hurl at Daewoo and Mira, but he's interrupted when he feels large invisible slashes coming his way. Judge R jumps away and when he lands, he sees none other than absolute unit and perpetual labor rights victim, Judge Q, waiting for him with Joker scythe in hand. There's not going to be a pay cut today though, because the only thing Judge Q is aiming to cut right now is Judge R's traitorous head. Judge Q wonders how R was able to kidnap Park Moo-jin before the two lunged at each other for a classic duel. Q doesn't mess around either, as he immediately lays a trap for R with his cards before having Joker appear right behind him to slice his neck off. The traitor dodges in the nick of time, but Q puts pressure on him. The blonde former GOH judge finds an opening and summons a wind bow before piercing Q in the shoulder. It's an even match, however, because R doesn't notice that Q has also landed a hit on him with one of his cards. Back at Jin Mori, he hears a voice in his head telling him that the door is about to open, so he cuts his duel with the priestess short and basically tells her he has no time for small fry before charging up lightning from the skies. Fog envelops Samsung Station, but the priestess realizes that Mori's gearing up for a massive attack. Back at Judge Q, he already has R on the ropes. He asks R why he betrayed them and R tells him that Moo-jin had lost his way. Q was just about ready to deliver the killing blow, but Daewoo tackles him so that they can escape Mori's lightning before he can give the traitor his much-deserved comeuppance. When the dust settles, the remaining Knox members are left to lick their wounds. The only thing the purple-haired bishop can do is scream after the whole operation failed in the most decisive way possible. At the hero's hideout, everyone from Gogam-do to Mansuk are on standby, as they wait for Un-Nayu to finish the ritual that would open the gate to the Sage Realm with the help of Mabora. We can tell Mansak is almost back to his old self when he starts stirring trouble with Gam-do and Gyeomji. Again, almost, because he immediately starts to fold and act like a total gopher when Mori arrives with the team from Samsung Station. Beck asks Daewoo if everything went smoothly, and he tells him that it did. In fact, we find out that Beck knew that Kim Joo-sik would snitch on Ginju to ultimately spring their plan to deliver a huge blow to Knox at Samsung Station. Un Nayu asks Mori if he's gotten a grip on his Monkey King powers, to which he says he's pretty much working on it. Un Nayu tells him that everything will be alright as long as he recovers his memories before finishing the ritual. The two statues in front of Un Nayu's shrine come to life and transform into a large wooden gate, the gate to the Sage Realm. It opens and Mori couldn't be more excited to see what's on the other side. He waltzes toward the doorway, but Big Sis Un Nayu tells him to cool his jets because they have a game plan set. Mori notices that there's still a spot missing in their group, but Park Yopo's team arrives to fill it. With everyone present, Un Nayu explains each team's assignment. Jin Mori, Daewoo, Mira, Judge Q, and Giju will go to the Sage Realm to retrieve the Jichundasong, the tonic that will help Mori get his memories back. Meanwhile, Yopo's team is charged with procuring the key fragments, while everyone else, like Gamdo, Manseok, and Gyeongji, are tasked with rescuing Park Mujin. Yeongnyu reminds Mori that time moves differently inside the Sage Realm. An hour there is equivalent to a full day in the real world. Plus, he shouldn't risk using his powers too much, as it might alert the denizens of the heavenly realm of their presence. But just when everything was all set, the eye patch-clad purple-haired Knox Bishop bursts into their lair, takes off her eye patch, and starts attacking everyone. Judge Q, Judge O, and Giju block her path, ready to use their respective borrowed powers. However, the bishop uses one of her eyes to activate an ability that stops everyone, even Unyu when she tries to join the fight, from using their borrowed powers. The bishop then proceeds to knee and kick the hell out of the judges. Ma Bora and Manseok see that Unyu's hurt, so they try to provide backup, but the sage tells them to stay in their respective formations. Too late, because the bishop just bull-rushed Manseok and Ma Bora. The bishop sets her attention towards Jin Mori, and Unyu notices the Sage Realm gate activating. A flash of light blinds nearly everyone in the room, and suffice it to say that our protagonist's plans have gone foobar. Unyu recovers from the gate's flash and sees that not only the judges, the Knox Bishop, and herself remain inside the lair, everyone else has been pulled into the Sage Realm. There, Mori, Daewoo, and Mira awake at Mount Hwagwa, a mountain shaped like a kneeling man made of stone. Mori and Mira are worried about being separated from the rest of their group, but Daewoo takes point and tells his friends that they should focus on finding the Jishundasung. Mori points to a random direction and tells his two best friends that he's got a good feeling about it. Of course, Mira and Daewoo don't trust his gut, and when Mori turns around again to look at the horizon, they're suddenly greeted by a large dragon. Meanwhile, Pung Guang, Jang Mi, and Beck find themselves in a different part of the Sage Realm, Kim Uma's castle, where demons are forcing a race of 8 people to do hard labor. In a different part of the realm, a large humanoid beast drags the unconscious Ilpo while the rest of his team have yet to wake up. Go Gam-do and Lee Hyangdan, on the other hand, find themselves inside Sage Garden, though they have no idea about the place just yet. Finally, the ragtag group of Gyeongji, Manseok, and Bora are knocked out on top of some rubble somewhere in the middle of the Sage Realm. Back at Mori's group, the 3 protagonists have made friends with the dragon they saw earlier and are now riding it towards the direction that Mori pointed to. But not everything's fun and games, because back in the real world, Unyu and the judges have all been taken out, as the Knox Bishop utters the word Namjoseon while standing in front of their unconscious bodies. Mori, Daewoo, and Mira arrive at the Monkey Kingdom of Or, a legendary advanced city populated by ape men. On the ground, a lone young ape boy is slack-jawed to see the dragons Mori's team are riding. However, Or's city guards spot the mythical beasts and shoot them down. Mori's dragon is hurt a bit, and it doesn't realize that it accidentally shook off its riders. The 3 heroes freefall hundreds of feet below. Mira summons Red Toma, her flying horse, to catch them, but it can't handle their combined weight, so it pops out of existence as soon as they land on Toma's back. Daewoo uses Heite ability, Bubble Bubble, to break their fall, and it almost works if not for the spiked tree that pierced them. Still, it was enough to soften the impact for Mori and his team, as they landed relatively unscathed and only pinned by a couple of coconut trees. The ape boy from earlier rushes to their location and is absolutely starstruck to meet people who can use the way of the sky. Mori, Daewoo, and Mira have no idea what the kid is talking about. The ape boy then helps the 3 heroes get the trees off their backs, protecting them from a derpy Mount Hwagwa tiger in the process. The ape boy introduces himself as Cha Ryu Ryu and pleads with the 3 to teach him this so-called way of the sky. Daewoo realizes the way of the sky is just another name that Or citizens used for borrowed power. Mori asks Ryu Ryu what he plans to do with borrowed power, especially considering that he can sense the ape boy's pretty capable in hand-to-hand combat. Ryu Ryu has no idea what the word combat means, but he notices that it's similar to what his people call the original sin of fighting. He then explains to the three that manhwa monkeys are different from the other monkeys in the Sage Realm. According to Ryu, manhwa monkeys are a docile and peaceful tribe, but they gain a near insatiable bloodlust when enraged. He then goes on to tell Mori, Mira, and Dewi that this violent streak is something they inherited from their ancestor, monkeys who challenge the gods. Ryu tries to convince the three to teach him how to use borrowed power, but Mori rebuffs him and instead offers to train him in hand-to-hand combat. Ryu thinks Mori is full of it, since he was the only one who didn't use any borrowed power to cushion their fall earlier. But Mori defends himself by revealing that he's actually the Monkey King, something that unsurprisingly Ryu doesn't believe one bit. The ape boy then panics when he remembers that today is an important one. It's the birthday of a prominent figure in Or, King Mho. Ryu takes the three heroes inside Or, and they're surprised to find out that it's a technologically advanced city. The little ape boy even tells them that they're not the first Way of the Sky visitors to arrive in Or. It's actually a pretty popular spot for borrowed power users. Mori spots the towering building in the middle of the city square, and he remembers the first time he unlocked his Monkey King powers and summoned Yoibo. Around the corner, Or citizens cheer as they watch this King Mho, a guy that the citizens referred to as their Monkey King, make a birthday announcement. Mho seems like a humble guy, telling his citizens that he had given up the Monkey King title long ago, so they should just refer to him as a stable master. Or's older citizens give us a hint about this too, as they recall how Mho abandoned his former title only after traveling to the quote-unquote other side, the human realm. Another old ape man then tells his friend that the war they fought then was a revolution, not a rebellion. Mho continues his on-screen presentation and introduces the two guards who shot the dragons earlier, Jin and Tachi. These two warriors then perform an exhibition where they slice bamboo shoots with their powers to the delight of everyone watching at City Square. Although Mori, Mira, and Dewi are pretty much confused, they don't get it. They're essentially just chopping wood after all. After the demonstration, Mho announces that he's going to perform a ritual on Jin and Tachi. He places his hands on their head, and a crown similar to what Mori wears when he activates his Monkey King powers appears around the ape warriors' heads. Mori watches the ritual and takes notice of the gourd hanging on Myoho's waist and wonders if it's the Jachutasung that they're looking for. The City Square celebration is interrupted, however, when Mho makes a citywide announcement declaring that someone broke the law forbidding the original sin of fighting, Ryu. Everyone turns on the ape boy and starts giving him nasty looks, all the while shunning him. Mori notices that these apes are starting to get froggy, so he takes out Yoibo and prepares to defend their new friend by telling his magical staff to extend. But nothing happens, because Mori had just used up his energy earlier when he fought the Knox cultists at Samsung Station. Or's citizens start to circle their group, so Mori unleashes a classic technique that schoolyard nerds use when boys are trying to take their lunch money. Run! The four hoof it away from the angered apes of Or. Meanwhile, Mho watches Mori's group and orders his warriors Jin and Tachi to accompany him on the hunt for these intruders. Outside Myoho's place, clouds form around Mori and giant bolts of lightning strike the middle of Or, laying waste to the buildings in the area and without a doubt killing scores of its citizens. Mori, Dewi, and Mira are alright, but Ryu's knocked out. Mori turns around to see that Mho, Jin, and Tachi are riding a gigantic floating Roomba called Flying Sparrow Cloud. It charges energy to summon more lightning bolts, and it's currently at 10%. Mho is amused that Mori's group survived the initial strike, and he and his men square up to the heroes. But we all know by now that Mori is one stone-cold dude. He doesn't wait for Mho to initiate the clash, as Mori barrages the so-called stable master with renewal taekwondo kicks before hitting the ape man with a devastating 12-6 elbow he calls renewal orang. Mho recovers and counters with Heavenly Art number 13, Earthen Dragon, which summons pillars of stone to rise from the ground and trample Jin Mori, but he easily repels us with a sweeping kick using renewal Earth Strike. Somewhere else, Dewi and Mira easily dispatch their respective opponents, with Dewi using Hunmu Fist while Mira dispatches her enemy with the long-windedly named technique called Wolkang Sword Art 0th Month. Mori continues to put pressure on Mho with solid kicks to the face, which he barely blocks, and Or's stablemaster asks who the hell he's actually fighting right now. Mori simply replies by telling him, "I'm the real one." The renewal taekwondo master then launches Jin Mori original, Blue Dragon's Edge at Mho, but the stablemaster summons dark energy that's able to rip the spirit dragon apart. Mori then follows up with a second Dragon Edge, but this time Mho pulls out his gourd and literally absorbs the attack. The stablemaster of Or then uses that same gourd to summon his underlings, an entire army of ape warriors similar to Jin and Tachi. Mori, Dewi, and Mira are reminded of their encounter with Jagal Tech when they see this, and they get right down to business. On the sidelines though, Mho uses his own staff and transforms into a giant 10-pronged sword before ordering it to slice Mori and his group. At this point, Ryu regains consciousness and reveals that he's an absolute unit when he catches Myoho's sharp yoibo with his bare monkey hands. But it's not enough, because it's revealed shortly after that Mori, Mira, and Daewoo are held captive inside the dungeons of Pilmaon, Myoho's castle. Back at the garden where Go Gam-do and Lee Hyangdan found themselves stranded in, the homely caretaker helps Gam-do with his wounds. Somewhere else, Gyeom-ji, Ma-bora, and Mansuk are finally awake. They find themselves in the middle of the forest and, as you'd expect from these mavericks, they start bickering. Mori, Daewoo, and Mira are still in Pilmaon's underground prison, though they're relieved to discover that Ryu is alive with them, albeit unconscious. Suddenly, Mori notices a small section of the prison floor suddenly rising to reveal that a group of geriatric Or citizens have snuck into the dungeon. The group of old ape men introduce themselves as veterans of the Great War before kowtowing to Mori, Daewoo, and Mira, pleading with them to save their city. They also reveal that Myoho's underlings, the one who sent Mori's group to this underground prison, are a squad of mind-controlled Or warriors. The old monkeys tell them that the stable master's actually using the dragon-shaped ridge on top of Pilmaon to control these warriors of his. In fact, one of the old monkeys even has a grudge with Myoho for basically turning his son into one of his zombie henchmen. They go on to tell Mori's group that all of Or is in bad shape. For one, this new regime under Myoho unscrupulously cut down the realm's Agatha demon trees, one of the monkeys' main sources of food. Then there's the fact that a lot of Or citizens have become obsessed with a dangerous new form of magic. And if that's not bad enough, the monkeys of Or's relationship with their old allies like Kim Uma has been continuously deteriorating. All of these problems spurred the group of old Great War veterans to find a more suitable leader for their country. Myoho just isn't cutting it. Meanwhile, the stable master of Or is in his throne room recovering from the effects of his bout with Mori earlier. He receives a call from a mysterious figure asking him why he used the ridge, and it's revealed that whenever Myoho does this, its effects can be felt in other realms too. The mysterious figure then asks if any so-called mages from the human world, referring to Mori and his group, entered the Sage Realm. Myoho lies and says there aren't. The call ends and one of Myoho's guards informs him that the prisoners have escaped from the underground prison and are headed for the throne room. Myoho prepares to face them, but not before looking at Mori's yoibo and wondering what exactly it is. Unbeknownst to him, the mysterious figure from earlier is watching him through a screen, and it's revealed that it's someone from Knox. Sang Mandok and the purple-haired bishop are in the room as well, and she gets introduced to another hooded Knox bishop, Byron. Mori, Daewoo, and Mira, along with Ryu and the war veterans, climb the castle's long, winding stairs. Mira wonders if it's okay to take the old monkey's words at face value and go on this mission, but Mori reassures her that their main goal is still to retrieve the gourd containing his memories. They're eventually chased by an army of mind-controlled monkey warriors, but one of the war veterans destroys the bridge to prevent Myoho's men from following Mori and his group, and then stands his ground to give them more time to make it to the top. Another war veteran tells Mori, Daewoo, and Mira not to worry about his friend because he's actually a legend during the Great War known as the Ghost. And just as the Ghost is about to get set upon by an army of Myoho's henchmen, he activates his powers and, whoa, he is one swole grandpa. In the meantime, Mori's group continue their trek up the tower. Somewhere else in the Sage Realm, Baek, Jangmi, and Pum Guang have been captured by the Minotaur-like guards of Kim Uma. They're brought in front of Uma, Oxen King of his domain, and he is one-horned, buxom individual with the physical proportions of a female bombshell. All the other lesser oxen people are in awe of Uma's big horns, a mark of a true leader in their kingdom. But not Baek, because the situation gets antsy when he tells Uma that their horn sucks. But this is all just a ploy to nag the king of the oxen people and have them come close to Baek before he does a full 180 and tells Uma that they'd look beautiful even without the horns. And just like that, the tension in the room's gone. Back at Pilmaon, Daewoo and Mira handle the fighting to let Mori recover his strength as they make their way to Myoho's throne room. Ryu and the war veteran can't help but be amazed at how powerful they are. However, a monkey warrior suddenly appears behind Mira and teleports her away from the group. The war veteran tells him that it must be one of their country's 4 loyal guards, an elite squad of warriors directly serving under the Monkey King. Mori tells the old ape man to relax. Mira is more than capable of handling herself. And he's right, because Mira finds herself in an unfamiliar room where she's suddenly struck by a couple of invisible slashes. The loyal guard specializes in teleportation, using it to go in and out of Mira's range. However, the Moonlight Sword-style master easily checks the elite monkey warrior and elbows him right in the face before preempting all of his moves and beating him up by using his scent as a tell for Mira to know his exact location. Meanwhile, Daewoo is getting a bit tired fending off the waves of monkey warriors coming his way. To make matters worse, another loyal guard known as Flame Monk Lakong has entered the battlefield. Daewoo uses himself as a distraction to face off against Lakong and allow Mori, Ryu, and the war veterans to get past the Flame Monk and enter Myoho's throne. Once there, one of the war veterans points Mori to the ceiling directly below the dragon-shaped ridge. He tells Mori that destroying it would free all the monkey warriors, even the 4 loyal guards, from Mho's control. Mori prepares to throw down with the stable master, but he stops when he sees that the ghost, whose name is revealed to be Meng, has been captured. To add insult to injury, Mho even made Meng's mind-controlled son do it. Mho tells Mori that he'd kill Meng if he makes a move. And like a true badass, Mori tells the Falsekin that he's a little scaredy cat. Right then, Mho orders Natu, another loyal guard, to deal with Mori. The hulking elite ape guard proceeds to sock Mori's face repeatedly, but the boy's got an iron chin. He just eats it without making a move, knowing that Meng will get killed if he fights back. Natu continues to wail on Mori, but on the sidelines, the war veterans make a move and rescue their friend. One of them hurls a small bomb at Meng's mind-controlled son, which knocks him out and frees the old man. But Natu notices this and he lunges at the bald war veteran. He's no slouch though, because the little monkey's an absolute pocket rocket who starts cooking Natu with his own brand of superb simian martial arts. But just when he's about to beat Natu though, the 4th royal guard, Ryu Jin, uses finger lasers to shoot at the old war veteran and throw him off his game. Natu takes advantage of this and starts to knock him out. He was just about to kill the unconscious war veteran by stepping on the poor dude when Natu felt his foot stop mid-stomp. He sees Mori holding his huge foot up with a single finger, and the renewal taekwondo master is done taking shots. Natu panics and calls for Ryujin's help, but Mori incapacitates the finger gun user in the blink of an eye with acupuncture artery block. When Natu, Ryu, and the war veterans turn their heads towards Mori, they realize that the boy has fully recovered and is actually the true Monkey King. Before Natu can do anything about it, he gets his primate butt knocked out when Mori gives him a cracking upkick right in the jaw. Back at Uma's castle, the Oxen King tells Baek, Pum Guang, and Jiang Mi, who have since become esteemed guests, about their history with the Monkey King. Uma reveals that they and the true Monkey King became sworn blood brothers 600 years ago, coinciding with the birth of the 9 elders. Everything had been going well for them until the Great War, when both their kingdoms eventually lost and the Monkey King was taken away. When he returned, the Monkey King became a lapdog for the monks, borrowed power users, and started to ghost Uma. When the Oxen King decided to confront his sworn brother about this, they were surprised to find out that his slice of war was now ruled by a pretender, Mho, who was much worse. Baek correctly guesses that Mho was more of a lackey for the monks than the original Monkey King ever was, and that he started a war against Uma. The Oxen King is impressed with him and invites Baek to be their wife, or die. The bespectacled boy refuses. At Pilmaon, Mori continues his fight against Natu. Knowing he's losing the bout, the loyal guard activates combat mode, which transforms him into an extra strong hot furry daddy before dealing Mori a double hammer fist that nearly crushes the renewal taekwondo master into the ground. The war veterans tell Mori to run, but we can chalk this up to them not knowing who they're talking to. This is Jin Mori, guys. He is that dude. Mori simply stands back up and nonchalantly tells Natu that the previous blow hurt. The loyal guard loads up a right straight, but Mori easily checks it with his knee, which causes Natu's shoulder to pop off its socket. An infuriated Natu tries to get Mori back, but the true Monkey King just waves his fingers before a barrage of invisible strikes hits Natu and takes him out. With the loyal guard beaten, Mori walks toward his main target, Mho. The false king teleports behind Mori and tries to give him a classic karate chop, but our boy dodges this and everything Mho tries to throw at him. Mori gives him a nonchalant leg kick, which causes Mho to lose his balance. The stable master of Ort does his best to evade Mori's succeeding barrage of sweeps until the boy finds an opening and sends him flying with a clean sidekick that sends Mho flying. Mho recovers and he faces off again with Mori. The false Monkey King of Ort tries to keep his composure and tell Mori something along the lines of, "You leave me no choice but to use this technique." After which, Mho activates Heavenly Hua Combat Magic 48 and lunges at Mori with vicious slashes and kicks. The war veterans reveal that Hua is a martial arts style that the true Monkey King developed, as Mho continues his barrage with techniques like Fading Kick, Grey Ascension, and Heavenly Tiger Strike, all which manage to hit Mori clean. To cap off his assault, Mho launches Grey Dragon's Hammer and stomps Mori's chest. To his credit, Mori did feel all those strikes, but it doesn't matter, because the true Monkey King immediately recovers and finesses Mho with a series of invisible hits. Mho recoils, but he's not out of the count yet. As a final measure, he summons up his giant magical Roomba, the Flying Sparrow Cloud, to charge up energy and hit Mori with a lightning bolt. Back at Uma's castle, the Oxen King won't just take no for an answer when Baek refuses to marry them. They threaten to kill the boy, but Baek maneuvers his way out of trouble when he tells Uma that the real Monkey King, Mori, is in the Sage Room right now. This just enrages Uma, thinking Baek's lying, but they immediately change their tone when they hear loud thunder off in the distance and Uma's guards report that thunderbolts have been spotted in the Monkey Kingdom. Back at Mori's, the flying sparrow cloud releases a blinding bolt of lightning, but not before Mori can use Nabong Needle Ryu limiter removal to dodge it. It almost works, but Mori notices that the lightning bolt still managed to hit his left leg. Mho follows it up by using his false yoibo to transform it into his Crimson Lightning Blade. Mori can barely keep up blocking and dodging it, and it ultimately hits him on his right thigh, incapacitating the renewal taekwondo master. Seeing an opening, Mho tells his flying sparrow cloud to hit Mori with another bolt of lightning. Meanwhile, deep beneath Pilmaon, monkey peons are struggling to haul Mori's yoibo for safekeeping. They wonder why it's so heavy, and in a split second, the magical staff grows hundreds of times its original size. It passes through all the levels of the castle, past Mira, who has just straight up slashed the teleporting loyal guard, past Daewee, who's still in the thick of battle with the flame monk, and ultimately past the ceiling of Pilmaon, destroying the dragon-shaped ridge and absolutely wrecking Mho's flying sparrow cloud along the way. The false king is shocked to see Mori wearing his crown, because the boy just transformed into his Monkey King form, and he's the real one. A desperate Mho summons his underlings using his gourd. A gaggle of 8 warriors lunge at Mori, but he dispatches them in one fell swoop before emerging right in front of the false king in the blink of an eye. Out of options, Mho tries to hit Mori with a punch, but the true Monkey King counters with a sonic speed upkick that sends shockwaves bursting through where the stable master is standing. Mho nearly passes out, but not before having his life flash before his eyes, as he remembers his youth. Back then, he was just a young chimp together with his little sister. It was during the Great War when he and his siblings saw the original Monkey King and their entire country engaged in a brutal battle against the gods. Mho's sister asks why adults fight all the time, and we find out that Mho was pretty much an indoctrinated youth when he scolds his sister for thinking that their kingdom is just fighting against the gods. To him, it's a revolution. In the present, Mho struggles to get up while Jin Mori stands in front of him. The true Monkey King incarnate talks to himself, seeing that he's pretty much in trouble now that he's depleted all his energy after barraging Mho. Ryu notices that the rest of the monkey warriors are finally free from the Ridge's mind control. At the same time, Daewee and Mira arrive at the throne room, each carrying the unconscious bodies of the loyal guards they defeated earlier. Mho digs deep, remembering the aftermath of the Great War when the entire country of Or was left in shambles. There was suffering all over, and his sister ultimately died of starvation after the true Monkey King's defeat at the hands of the gods. Back in the present, Mho finally stands up and Mori proceeds to give him another beating, but the memory of Mho's sister keeps him from succumbing to his injuries. He endures another barrage of vicious attacks, culminating in Jin unleashing his patented renewal taekwondo, third stance Hui choke technique. But at this point, Mho has gotten back his resolve and evades the triple hit combo before telling Mori that he should never have started the Great War way back then. The false king then grabs his opponent and uses Hua Art's final secret, the same ultimate technique that the true monkey was known for. It's a gigantic slash that hits Mori clean and sends him flying. Mori tries to get back on his feet, and Mira and Daewee ask him if he wants any help, seeing that he is now getting creamed by this false Monkey King. Mori refuses and, as he walks past his best friends, wonders if he truly wasn't such a good king all those centuries ago. Daewee tells him that's all the more reason for Mori to get his memories back, and if it's true that he was a crappy ruler, the best Mori can do is not make that same mistake again. Mira, on the other hand, reassures Mori that he probably couldn't be as bad as this false ruler, but before Mori could reply, Mho rushes in and cracks him with a left hook, all the while chastising him for abandoning Or after the Great War. Mori doesn't fight back and eventually blocks one of Mho's punches with his hand. He tells the false king that he just wants his memories back and that he'll make amends once he remembers everything he did as the true Monkey King. Mho isn't having it though. He tells Mori to just die before unleashing another powerful slash with his final secret technique. But before the attack could connect, Mori's surprised to see that someone has stabbed Mho in the back. He turns his attention behind the false king and sees Knox Bishop Byron was the one who just did Mho dirty. The bishop is disappointed at the false king, telling him he should have just done what Knox told him to do. And inside that throne, at that moment, an entire squad of Knox cultists appear out of nowhere. Byron tells all the other Knox members, who are all priest-level threats, to just stand back. He got this. Meanwhile, Mira tries to survey the throne room to look for the gourd, as she noticed that it got knocked away earlier when Mho took one of Mori's kicks. Back to Mho, the false king remains alive even with a gigantic glaive sticking out of his chest. He tries to give Byron a back fist, which gives him an opening when the bishop dodges and lets go of his weapon. Mho follows up with Heavenly Spell number 13, Earthworm, to gain some distance between himself and Byron, but the bishop is one slippery dude. He teleports right behind Mho, and the false Monkey King tries to get the upper hand with another final secret slash. Byron cancels out of the technique by easily punching Mho right in his chest stab wound, all the while taunting Mho. Byron is just about ready to finish off his former lackey, but loyal guard Lakong intervenes by setting Byron's head on fire. The Knox priest prepare to make a move, but Byron reassures him that no, he got this. Meanwhile, Daewoo checks in on Mori while his friend recovers. Mori tells him that he can feel that Byron is a much bigger threat than Sang Mandek. In the middle of the battlefield, Byron activates the ridge, which is connected to Myo's crown and gives him an excruciating headache. Not only that, but all the other warriors previously controlled by the ridge start to feel this torturous migraine too. One of the war veterans can't help but ask how Byron is doing it, especially considering that Mori already broke the ridge. At the same time, loyal guard Natu tries to attack Byron to stop him from using the ridge, but the bishop just points at him and finger gun. Byron simply says bang and Natu becomes desiccated and dies right in front of him. Seeing this reminds Mho of how he ultimately became the false king of war, as it's revealed that it was Byron who drafted him after the Great War, doing that same finger gun as a joke at the time. In the present, all the monkey warriors start to fall like flies when Byron uses the same technique on them. Mho realizes that Knox had just been using him after all this time, and now he wants payback. The former false king of war starts walking towards Byron, but the bishop starts launching black energy bullets his way. Mho shrugs off the first one, but Byron sends a second, larger energy blast. Loyal guard Lakong does Mho a solid and blocks Byron's technique, eating it whole and killing him, but not before telling the false king to avenge them. Mho continues approaching Byron, and all the other remaining monkey warriors start using their bodies as shields to stop Byron's energy bullets. All of them eventually fall, but Byron launches one final energy bomb at Mho. But this time, Mori rescues the old stable master and pulls him out of the way. He tells Mho that he's going to die for real if he keeps on walking toward the bishop like that, especially considering that Mho's already gravely wounded. In response, the old false king magically manifests the gourd in his hand and hands it over to Mori, telling him to save everyone if he really is the true king of the monkeys. Byron stops playing games and just decides to set Mho on fire. He then launches an invisible slash that hits Mori in the back before aiming his glaive at our hero. Before the bishop can do anything though, a huge motorbike comes bursting right into the throne room and lands right on top of Byron. And who's on this hog? It's Uma, Beck, Jang Mi, Poong Guang, and a couple of the Oxen King's personal guards. Uma doesn't immediately notice that they ran over the bishop and asks what the hell Byron was doing standing in the middle of their path. The Oxen King doesn't pay too much attention to the Knox member and instead glances at the giant Yoibo sticking out of the throne room. They turn their head and see Mori, and Uma asks himself if it's really their blood brother. Meanwhile, Mori notices that Mho is still breathing, so he uses his acupuncture to help keep his former enemy alive. Uma approaches Mori and asks if he's really their bro before telling him to apologize. Mori doesn't respond and just tells Uma to let go of him. When they do, the Oxen King notices Mori's bleeding. Uma starts frantically shaking Mori and asks him if he's alright, but Byron interferes and tells the Oxen King to stop touching his quote-unquote prey before absolutely totaling Uma's big bike. Uma turns toward Byron and the bishop is surprised to see the Oxen King sizing him up in an instant, just an inch away from his face. Even Daewoo can't believe how fast Uma moves, while their two Oxen guards tell each other that Byron's pretty much dead now that he wrecked Uma's favorite bike. The Oxen King starts making fun of Byron's tiny horns, and Byron takes him by surprise when he smacks him with his glaive. The Knox bishop follows up by stabbing Uma, but they easily catch its blade with 3 fingers. Uma wonders why Byron is weak sauce before loading up a punch. The bishop dodges the Oxen King's right straight. Uma's punch is so powerful that it blows a hole in the side of Pilmaun. The next thing Byron knows, almost a third of his body is gone, and he's shocked that Uma did it just with the air displacement caused by their punch. The Oxen King's not surprised at how weak Byron is though, as they comment that monks typically have soft bodies. Meanwhile, Daewoo and Mira carry Mori, noticing that he's hurt pretty bad. Back at Byron, one of the Knox priests tries to assist him, and it's revealed that his glaive is actually alive. It eats the priest whole. In turn, this gives Byron the ability to regenerate from his injuries by absorbing the life force his weapon consumes. Daewoo sees this and recognizes on the fly that Byron possesses the weapon called Greed. The Knox bishop sets his eyes on Uma and immediately rushes them. The Oxen King dodges a couple of his slashes, but they get hit when Uma sees Greed growing several vines with sharp-toothed mouths at the end, which stuck themselves to the Oxen King. Greed then starts absorbing Uma's life force, and the Oxen King can feel himself losing strength. But this is child's play to the horned ruler of the Ox Kingdom. They simply blow air into their thumbs, which causes Greed's sharp life-sucking suctions to latch off their body and allow Uma to instantly regain their strength. Byron can't believe what he just saw, and he's too late to react when Uma blows another hole in his torso, which sends him flying. The Oxen King then summons their own legendary weapon, a giant fan called Plantain Flower. In the meantime, Byron starts using Greed to eat more Knox priests to let his body heal. Recovering again, Byron tries to clash with Uma. The impact that greed and plantain flour cause is so huge that it cuts King Mho in half. In the aftermath, Uma sustains a huge diagonal cut on their torso. But don't worry, it's just a flesh wound. Because as for Byron, Uma proved yet again that they're not one to be messed with when they left the bishop with missing organs and appendages. The damage on Byron is so bad that he starts using greed to consume more of his Knox underlings. Not only that, but greed latches onto the dragon ridge on top of King Mho to suck it dry. One of the war veterans sees this and realizes that the ridge wasn't just controlling the monkeys' minds, it was siphoning off their strength this whole time too. Byron absorbs so much life force that greed grows hundreds of times its original size. In response to this, we get a classic shonen-type escalation scene from Uma as they, in turn, activate plantain flour's true form. Back at the Sage Realm Garden, Gogam-do and Lee Hangdan seem to have quit looking for a way home and started new lives as orange pickers when they witness a gargantuan tornado forming far in the distance. And this tornado? Yeah, it's plantain flour's true form. Uma's basically wielding a natural disaster in their hands, and the Oxen King has every intention of letting it loose on Byron. The two combatants clash again and the entirety of Or's Monkey Kingdom gets washed out in a flash of white light. The dust settles. Pumguang, Jiang Mi, Ryu, the war veterans, Mira and Daewoo recover and find themselves encased in Daewoo's protective bubble technique. Daewoo, however, realizes that they and all the remaining citizens of the Monkey Kingdom are encased in protective horn-shaped shells that Uma's two oxen guards summoned to protect them from their king's devastating tornado. Uma, on the other hand, feels spent after their battle with Byron, but the Oxen King easily recovers their energy by breathing in some sweet, sweet air. In fact, Uma can't help but laugh at how they almost died in that duel, which makes them fail to notice greed flying their way and landing right behind Uma. Mira asks what happened to Byron, and they see that Uma's attack didn't just blow a gaping hole this time, it disintegrated his entire upper body. Uma makes sure nothing's left of the Knox bishop and uses plantain flour to crush his remains before calling out for Mori. Distracted, Uma fails to notice greed behind them as the sentient weapon starts to take a bite out of the Oxen King's glorious horns. Mori manages to kick away the shark-like glaive, but not before it successfully consumes one of Uma's horns. Greed starts munching and digesting Uma's horn, moving of its own accord. Mori realizes that Byron isn't the bishop, it's actually greed. Meanwhile, Uma starts writhing in agony after losing their horn, and their body starts to lose mass, with the Oxen King shrinking to about half their original size. While this is happening, Greed uses the energy it took from Uma to give birth to another Byron. The two Oxen Guards try to attack the reborn Greed wielder, but Byron easily takes them down. But Uma's not out of the fight yet, as Byron barely notices the whirlwind the Oxen King unleashed behind him. Byron uses greed to block the attack, while Uma rushes in to rescue their subjects. It's revealed that losing one of their horns turned Uma from a muscle mommy into a thin, smaller version of herself who's still no less well endowed. Uma prepares for another go-round with their enemy, while Byron grows a single large horn on his head, the one Greed took from the Oxen King earlier. Byron starts it off by calling forth a technique he simply calls Earthquake that summons a giant white buzzsaw that whirls itself toward the Oxen King. Uma tries to block it, but Mori comes to their rescue and pushes the Oxen King out of the way, which makes Earthquake zoom past them and cleave its way miles beyond its original target. Mori and Uma start bickering like a couple of, well, brothers until the Oxen King sees the Monkey King's gourd strapped to Mori's hip. They ask what it is, and Mori tells Uma that it contains his memories. But there's one problem. He doesn't have any idea how to use it. Byron takes the opportunity to rush behind Mori, but Uma hurls him away with a swing of the plantain flour. The Oxen King then tells their blood brother to hurry up and activate the gourd, but Mori thinks it's broken. The Knox bishop then attacks him while they're distracted, but Uma's trusty Oxen Guards protect him with a couple of horn-shaped shells. Byron spots him and launches a wave of energy toward the guards. In turn, Uma saves their subjects again by standing in front of Byron's attack, which results in the Oxen King losing an arm. Byron won't let up and launches another blast. Uma tries to counter it, but they lack the juice to do it and are thrown back when the bishop's attack hits. Mori catches his blood brother and Uma tells him that he can use the gourd to seal away the Knox bishop. In the meantime, the Oxen King will use themselves as bait to give Mori an opening. Byron bites and stabs Uma, but the horned bombshell reveals it's all part of the plan to lure their opponent so that Mori can use the gourd to seal him. Mori points the gourd at Byron, but nothing happens. That is until he feels another hand hold his and Mori sees that Mho is awake. The former false king of war helps Mori activate the gourd and sucks Byron inside it, along with Uma. When he gets his wits about him, the Knox bishop notices that he and Uma are inside an empty void. Byron taunts Uma, asking them what they can do with their damaged body, before using divine punishment to deliver the killing blow. Before Byron and Greed could connect, though, a giant fist punches them into the ground. He then sees a giant pair of arms emerging from the ground right behind Uma, and the Oxen King reveals that they're going to reveal their true form, something that they couldn't do in the Sage Realm because of how powerful it is. The pair of hands rising from the ground eventually give way to reveal a giant spectral version of Uma sealed in chains. The Oxen King tells their enemy that their real body was sealed after the Great War, but it's about dang time to bust out this move. Uma fully transforms into their true form, a gigantic ox person with 4 horns. Byron's not impressed, but he quickly realizes he's in deep trouble when Uma severs his left arm with a single stomp. Still, the Knox bishop feigns confidence, so this time Uma flicks his right arm and sends it flying. Byron can see the chains binding the Oxen King are disappearing with every passing second, and just to make it fun, Uma shrinks down to Byron's size to give their opponent a fighting chance. At this point, even Greed becomes vocal and starts shouting at Uma, but the Oxen King easily subdues it and its wielder. Uma then bites Greed while she pulls out the horn Byron stole from them. Uma tries to reattach the horn to her head, but it doesn't work. While this is happening, Greed tries to extend a single vine from its body to try and steal another horn from the Oxen King, but Uma immediately catches on and hurls the sentient glaive away. However, Greed still managed to siphon off a bit of energy from Uma, which is more than enough to help Byron recover his strength and allow him to launch Earthquake again. At this point, Uma isn't even paying attention to their opponent. The Oxen King sneezes and doesn't even notice that it was enough to cancel out Byron's Earthquake. Now desperate, Greed turns itself and Byron into a living bomb primed to explode if Uma tries to even touch them. But before the sentient weapon could even finish its sentence, Uma smashes them into the ground with their giant palm. Uma lifts their hand to reveal that Greed has been absolutely flatlined. It used to look like a freaky, toothed sentient glaive, but now it's just a little twig the size of a toothpick compared to the Oxen King. Uma's not done with it though, so she picks up Greed and eats the defeated weapon. Just savage! Back in the human realm, Sang Manduk attends a meeting with his fellow Knox bishops. We also find out his real name and title, Excalios von Lagoon, the Bishop Sang Manjin. But we'll stick to calling him Manduk. The other bishops inform Manduk that Byron's dead. They wonder how a basic monster like Uma could have killed him, but another one of them reminds his colleagues that it's not unprecedented. After all, Jin Mori nearly bodied Sang Manduk before. Another bishop tries to defend Manduk, saying that he only lost that bout because he faced Mori after already sustaining wounds from his previous battle with Park Mu-jin and Jeon Jasan. The argument ends when everyone agrees that whatever the case may be, they really can't take Mori's crew lightly. Manduk then reports how exactly Knox became a political powerhouse in South Korea. He reveals that they recruited the owner of 2 of Seoul's most powerful companies, JG Group and Siksung. In turn, Knox used the funds they siphoned off these companies to establish themselves as a brand by way of charitable efforts that ultimately gave them a foothold in mainstream South Korean politics. Manduk tells the other bishops that he's pretty much become the frontman for Knox, a position he finds ill-suited for him. Regardless, he continues his report and tells everyone that Park Mu-jin is under their custody along with Jin Taejin, that former tournament judge R has joined their ranks, and that they've also taken the other judges and Kim Eun-yoyo prisoner after their encounter with the purple-haired female bishop. The others can't believe how Eun-yoyo was so easily captured, but Manduk tells him it's because she was recuperating from using her technique during the end of the God of High School tournament, which de-aged and significantly weakened her. And it's here that we finally get an idea of how strong the purple-haired bishop is. Manduk reveals her name to be Lee Sujin, and the reason that she made quick work of Eun-yoyo and the other judges is because 1, she's a key, and 2, she removed the restrictions on her powers during that fight. In addition to that, Manduk also lets everyone know that Sujin has the power to break other people's restrictions. So, he makes a suggestion about how they can deal with Mori and the remaining members of Knox's enemies, allow Sujin to use her powers on all of the Knox cultists to boost their powers and remove the seal that prevents humans from killing gods. But the other bishops don't agree with this. They think it's sacrilege. Hearing this, Manduk tries to convince his fellow Knox cultists that the true sacrilege here is letting a bishop like Byron get killed by a monster like Uma. The bishops fold and realize that Manduk has a point, and the white-haired Knox frontman asks his allies to be granted an audience with their king. Somewhere else, Sujin awaits her orders. They tell her it's time to move. For now, the matter about removing restrictions is pending, but she can act with impunity otherwise. Back to Uma, the Oxen King tries to call Mori and the others to let them out of the gourd. They feel some sort of earthquake from outside, but no one's answering. So, the horned bombshell summons Plantain Flower and decides to let themselves out. Uma swings the fan, but the impact of their weapon just ricochets around the gourd's void. Suddenly, Uma gets sucked out of there and back to the Sage Realm, only to discover that Nephilim from the Heavenly Realm are now attacking everyone. Jang Mi, Poom Gwang, Daewoo, Mira, and Baek do their best to defend themselves, but they are having trouble dealing with these creatures. Uma turns to see that Sujin is floating among the gigantic deities. The Oxen King springs into action and defeats a couple of huge Nephilim effortlessly, but there are just too many of them. Still, this doesn't faze the Horned Chief of the Oxen Kingdom. To Uma, they're all just a bunch of flies waiting to be squashed. It's revealed that Sujin was the one who summoned all the gods and Nephilim earlier, right after Mori and Mho used the gourd to send Uma and Byron inside it. At that moment, the gigantic creatures targeted Mori before wreaking havoc all over the place. Mho tried to use the gourd to seal Sujin and her summoned deities, but the Knox bishop got to him first. Sujin broke the former false king's arm and pressured him into releasing Uma from the gourd then. Back in the present, Uma continues to decimate the enemy's ranks. They eventually get surrounded, but the Oxen King summons Plantain Flower and obliterates each and every Nephilim in the area with the swing of the legendary fan. Uma then teleports behind Sujin, but they freeze up just before the Oxen King could impale the Knox bishop with their hand. At that moment, Uma starts to feel some sort of energy starting to restrict their entire body, and when Sujin turns around and they lock eyes, the Oxen King gets fully bound. To make matters worse, Sujin instantly seals away Uma's power, breaking 3 of their horns in the process. We then get a reveal on who Sujin really is and where she derives this magnificent power from. In ages past, God created the first woman and gave her a box. The gods told her not to open it, but curiosity got the best of her, so she ignored her creator's orders. The box released all sorts of evil, from curses to plagues, when it opened. And at that moment, the first woman realized her purpose, to destroy the gods themselves. Her name was Pandora, the All-Gifted, the second key, and we find out that Sujin derives her powers from this entity. Uma tries to attack the Knox bishop again with an energy-blasting shout, but Sujin easily throws it back with a technique called Pandora's Box, Reflection. Right then and there, Uma starts to feel their hands wither, and the Oxen King realizes that Sujin has poisoned them with another one of her abilities. Daewoo tries to use his borrowed power to help Uma, but Baek stops him. The calculating martial artist tells Daewoo that borrowed power would be useless in this fight, since Sujin can easily seal it. So, the karate master decides to go another route, put his hands on Sujin with his Kyokushin karate. Daewoo charges at the Knox bishop and hits her with an overhand right, but Sujin blocks it before using her eyes to freeze Daewoo in place. Meanwhile, Jang Mi can feel spots crawling all over her body. Poom Gwang tries to help her, but Sujin's influence makes Jang Mi turn against her comrade as she starts berating him. The whole place starts to get cold all of a sudden, as Sujin uses Pandora's Box Open, a technique that freezes everyone nearby in place. Some distance away, Uma summons Plantain Flower, but her hands turn to ash the moment it appears. Before the Oxen King could react, Sujin's already right in front of her. The bishop hurls her away with a single push, and Uma is sent flying towards a boulder. One of the Oxen King's personal guards, Drachi, stabs Sujin with his horns, telling Uma to run. But Sujin just eats this up before smashing the Oxen Warrior into a cloud of red mist. The second Oxen Guard, whose name is revealed to be Wu Chi, retaliates. But the Knox bishop is just too much, and she tries to impale him with her bare hand. The Oxen Guard would have instantly died if not for Uma standing in the way and taking the shot for him. Uma says one final farewell to their subordinate before flying away and dragging Sujin with them. Seconds later, Baek asks Wu Chi if he can use Plantain Flower. The Oxen Warrior tells him that he could, but not as well as Uma. It's enough for Baek though, and he comes up with a plan to stop Sujin's rampage. Shortly after, Sujin re-emerges from the rubble carrying Uma's unconscious body before tossing it aside. Baek and the rest of the heroes take this opportunity to spring their plan as he, Daewoo, and Poom Gwang rush at the Knox bishop from behind. Sujin defends herself by activating a force field around her, repelling the 3 martial artists. The Knox bishop reacts just in time to block off a blast from Mho, and she follows up by force pushing Muir's former stablemaster towards a cliff face. The Pandora-wielding borrowed power user goes on the offensive and rushes forward, but Baek accounted for this. He gives Wu Chi the signal and that Oxen Guard swings Plantain Flower right by Sujin's face. Still, the Knox bishop is able to repel the attack. But the few seconds that takes Sujin to defend against Wu Chi gives Daewoo enough time to use borrowed power, missed, and sets it off with Sujin trapped inside. It almost works, but the purple-haired bishop encases herself in another force field. She gets Daewoo in her sights, which distracts her enough for Uma to recover and grab Plantain Flower from Wu Chi, ready to swing it at their enemy. All the while, Wu Chi supports the Oxen King with Heavenly Charm, an ability that allows him to temporarily restore Uma's missing arm. The Oxen King takes a swing, while Sujin releases a force of energy to meet it. The clash ends in a stalemate, and the Knox bishop is able to grab Uma by the neck right after. But this is all part of the plan. As Sujin gets ready to strike the Oxen King down, she fails to notice that Daewoo, Baek, and the others are right above her, enclosed in Bubble, ready to drop down. Sujin tries to cancel out Bubble Bubble, but she fails to activate her ability and starts to suffocate. At the same time, Mira summons Red Tone to rescue Uma and Wu Chi. Above the ground, Beck tells his friends they were able to literally take Sujin's breath away. It turns out that the surrounding area around Plantain Flower creates a vacuum whenever Uma swings it, and when they and Sujin clashed, it created a vacuum large enough to suck out the oxygen around the purple-haired bishop. A Nephilim suddenly appears behind Beck and the rest of the group, and Uma punches its head off, which knocks the Oxen King off Red Toma. Uma thinks this is the end of the line for them, but Beck comes in clutch and catches them before they hit the ground, hitting on them as he carried the Oxen King in his arms. Beck and Uma land, and Nephilim start to descend upon them. The angels dogpile the two until a large, bright explosion kills the creatures. Somewhere else, we finally get up to speed with Park Yilpo. He has found himself inside a cave where the nine-tailed fox is being held prisoner. He reveals that the creature who dragged Yilpo here is his most trusted subordinate, cursed by the gods to become a lowly monster after it helped the nine-tailed fox escape before. Yilpo asks the nine-tailed fox what makes monsters different from gods, and it reveals that it's pretty much a matter of public opinion. When gods think the other gods are, well, gods, they're welcome to stay in the heavenly realm. If they don't, they call them monsters and expel them, which is what happened to the nine-tailed fox. The captive god monster mentions that the Jade Emperor betrayed him a long time ago, leading to his exile from the heavenly realm. In revenge, he destroyed heaven and escaped to the Sage Realm. But he had sustained grievous injuries after his attack on the realm, which forced him to split his being. We finally get a reveal on Yilpo's exact location too, as the nine-tailed fox reveals that they're in Orguk, the same prison where he left his body, one half of his self. His other half, the nine-tailed fox's soul, he sent to the human realm. It ultimately possessed Yilpo's grandfather, then his father, and now the nine-tailed fox's soul is within Yilpo himself. The fox god tells him that of all the hosts he's had, Yilpo is the most suitable. However, the events that ultimately led to the near destruction of Soul back when Yilpo and Mori faced Jagal Tech almost left the nine-tailed fox's spirit fractured. He tells Yilpo that his soul was already nearly depleted after all the beatings it took in the human world, so the Taekwon master arrived at Orguk just in time for them to merge. So he asks Yilpo to form a direct contract with him. Back at the ruins of Pelmaon, Dewi, Mira, and the rest of the group barely make it in time to escape the previous explosion using Bubble Bubble. They're high up above the ground, but they can still feel the chill from Sujin's techniques on the ground. And at that moment, after basically carrying the team on his back over and over again during the encounter with the Knox Bishop, Dewi feels like he's going to pass out. On the ground, Sujin reports to the other Knox Bishops that she's completed her mission. Now, you might be wondering where Mori was during this whole battle, and we get an answer as the Cloaked Bishop asks Sujin about the Monkey King, to which she reveals that she was able to steal the gourd from Mihu earlier and seal Mori inside it. A small problem though, neither Sujin nor the other bishops know how to open it and release Mori so that they can take him prisoner. The bishop then asks her what happened to Uma, and Sujin tells him that the Oxen King is dead. Then the cloaked man tells Sujin that she has more work to do, and the purple-haired Pandora user accepts the task in front of her. Somewhere else, Sang Mandok approaches the Knox King's throne and prepares to parley with them. Meanwhile, in a different part of the Sage Realm, 3 juvenile monkeys loiter around after playing hooky. The 3 chimps fall silent when Kang Man-suk, Gyum-ji, and Ma Bora walk past them. Earlier, these 3 rambunctious martial artists were just wandering around Sage Realm when they came across an army of monkey warriors training in the arts of heavenly charms and combat. Man-suk, being the delinquent that he is, interrupts the instructor conducting the session, which prompts one of the monkey warriors, Doku, to hit him with an energy blast in the face. This doesn't do anything to Man-suk other than tick him off, so he grabs Doku by the head and starts swinging him around like a plushie. The rest of the monkey warriors mobilize and a riot ensues between the 3 delinquents and the monkey army. Back in the present, one of the juvenile chimps recognizes Man-suk's group and basically tells them how much they idolize these 3 for defeating the 500 monkey martial artists at their temple. Their conversation is cut short, however, when Gyum-ji spots a mushroom cloud off in the distance, the same explosion that happened when Uma and Beck were set upon by the Nephilim. Gyum-ji tells everyone to brace themselves as the shockwave hits. In the aftermath, Ma Bora opens her eyes to see Dewi and the others falling from the sky while encased in Bubble Bubble. Ma Bora, Gyum-ji, and Man-suk put on their game faces and rescue their comrades with the help of the juvenile monkeys. A bit later, with Dewi unconscious but now safely on the ground, Gyum-ji and Ma Bora realize that each and every one of their allies has been poisoned. Ma Bora asks the young monkeys where they could find a doctor, but one of the kids tells them that nearly all of the healers live in the capital, which has now become a desolate wasteland after the battles that occurred there earlier. Another one of the kids tells her that there might still be a chance to find a doctor if they go to a place where their world's Taoist hermits, or sages, go to relax. Ma Bora then tells everyone that they'll head there immediately. In another part of the Sage Realm, Park Sonyeon and Park Sonya, the other members of Ilpo's group, have finally regained consciousness. They roam around a jungle looking for Ilpo until Sunya spots a trail and realizes that he must have been dragged somewhere. A four-armed ape creature suddenly attacks her, but Sunyeon easily dispatches it with her Yodbab Tycoon. Back at the ruins of Pilmaun, Sujin stands atop the rubble of the castle and uses her powers to telepathically reassemble the life-force-absorbing Dragon Ridge. Shortly after, Knox priests Axley and Saturn arrive with several worshipper-level pawns. Axley reports that the other Knox higher-ups were only able to send this many reinforcements when Byron consumed the rest of the active priests on the roster earlier. Sujin has no choice but to work with what she's got, and she asks about the monkeys, the citizens of War. Axley reveals that they've all been captured and are now their prisoners, as Knox rounds them up in large cages. Somewhere in the distance, Wu Chi sees all this while he scouts and does some recon work for the team. All the Oxen warrior can do when he sees Uma's lifeless body crucified and impaled at the Knox camp is mourn for his king. And at that moment, Sujin fully reconstructs the Dragon Ridge. Sometime later, Daewee wakes up at the Sage Garden to find Go-Gamdo standing in front of him. He tells Daewee that he patched up his wounds when they got there, and Gamdo reveals that it was all Ma Bora's idea before the buxom martial artist latches onto Daewee to give him a big hug. Wu Chi arrives back to the group and reports what he saw at the ruins of War City. Hearing this, Mira tries to come up with a plan, but she's stymied when she realizes that if they weren't enough to win against Sujin alone, what more could they do now that she has an army behind her? Daewee adds fuel to the fire when he mentions that borrowed power won't work against the Knox Bishop. Mansuk hears this and basically chastises Daewee for trying to rely on borrowed power too much. He then challenges him to a fight, and Daewee accepts. The two face off in a pure martial arts duel, with Daewee opening with Black Turtle Fist, which grazes Mansuk. Before he can recover, Daewee follows up with Red Phoenix Kick, but the ITF Taekwondo user counters with a powerful soccer kick that sends Daewee back. On the sidelines, Jang Mi asks Mira if they really should be wasting their time on this pissing contest instead of coming up with a plan to fight Knox, to which the swordswoman pretty much answers by saying that Mansuk is a classic meathead who only understands violence. So yes, it's better to just get this out of his system to rein in the ex-convict. Ma Bora agrees, and Gyeomji can't help but be impressed with how powerful both Mansuk and Daewee are, as the two trade blows in the middle of the garden. Mira notices that Mansuk has gotten stronger than before, but chalks it up to the fact that Daewee isn't using his borrowed power in this duel. Daewee and Mansuk go for one last clash, but Mira rushes in between them to stop the fight when she notices they might end up killing each other. Mansuk praises Daewee's combat prowess and asks why he's so afraid of Sujin, but the Kyokushin karate master doesn't really give a straight answer. Later, Mira gets back to business and tells everyone what they should do. She decides to separate the group into two teams. The first team, made up of Ma Bora, Gyeomji, and Mansuk, will distract the Knox cultists. While they're doing that, the rest of the group, except for Mewho, will free the citizens of Or from captivity. As for the former stable master, he's tasked with stealing the gourd from Sujin and using it to release Mori. Daewee asks why Mewho just can't magically summon the gourd like he did before, but Mira surmises that Sujin used her power to prevent this from happening, since Mewho had already tried that. Mira adds that they should not use their borrowed power for this mission, as Sujin will just turn it against them. Gyeomji then asks if that's all there is to the plan, especially considering that if someone like Uma failed to beat Sujin, it's pretty much a done deal that their group would be squashed when they get there. Lee Hyangdang agrees with this, so to help their cause, Mewho begs the juvenile monkeys, Ryu Ryu included, to help them. We also find out that Ryu Ryu comes from this part of the Sage Realm, Oraguk. Mewho pleads with the little monkeys to help them convince the other citizens of Oraguk to join the fight. Ryu Ryu wants to, but he is not sure how his fellow monkeys can help. Mewho replies by telling them that Oraguk monkeys can use their real power in this war, the same one that he forbade as the false king in the past, heavenly charms and combat. At the capital's ruins, Sujin activates the reconstructed Dragon Ridge and uses it to control the monkey prisoners' minds and absorb their life force, turning them into desiccated husks. Sometime later, the group finally springs their plan and head for Knox's location at the Monkey Kingdom capital's ruins. Mira scouts the area and finds out that there are more worshipper-level Knox cultists than she initially anticipated, not to mention that Sujin's presence alone is giving her the heebie-jeebies. Still, they've got a job to do, and she thinks to herself that the core objective of their mission is to have Mewho get his hands on the gourd that Sujin now possesses and free Mori. Off in the distance, the worshippers notice Gyeomji, Ma Bora, and Mansuk slowly approaching. The cultists have no idea who they are, but it doesn't matter, because they're not there to introduce themselves, they're there to kick some Knox butt. At Mira's perch, Daewee tells her that it's time to proceed with their own part of the mission, to free the captured monkey citizens of Or. At this moment, Mansuk's group distracts the Knox worshippers by luring them some distance away from the cages before stopping to get into a classic brawl with the cultists. Mansuk can notice that even these Knox thugs possess a certain degree of strength and realizes that people like Daewoo have been going against these threats while he was in jail. He has to catch up. Mansuk continues to wreak havoc among the worshipper ranks until a Knox priest named King Sagat stops him with an energy blast. Gyeomji and Pandora immediately come to the rescue, with the female martial artist drawing her tonfas to attack Sagat. He dodges Pandora's initial salvo but falls right into a trap that Gyeomji set, as the flamboyant fighter wraps his trademark trenchcoat around the priest to obscure his vision and movement. Gyeomji signals for Pandora to whack the guy, but both of them are repelled when Sagat releases another burst of energy. The priest then barely notices Mansuk creeping behind him, and the ex-convict ITF Taekwondo user grabs the element of surprise by releasing a ground-shattering kick directly at Sagat. However, he simply blocks this with a wave of his arms before activating a technique that freezes both Mansuk and Pandora in place. But you can't count Gyeomji out just yet, as he surprises Sagat with a solid headbutt, which interrupts his technique and frees his friends. Gyeomji gives his teammates a thumbs up before getting back to business. At the cages, the juvenile monkeys sneak behind a couple of Knox guards and start curb-stomping them after dumping metal buckets on the fanatics' heads. Meanwhile, Pumguang and Ryo lockpick one of the cages open to proceed with the rescue mission. However, they discover that the Dragon Ridge has done quite a number on the innocent 8 people of war, as most of them lie on the ground lifeless. One of the juvenile monkeys tells Ryo to find the ones who are still alive and feed them slices of Agathidemon peach to help them recover. Ryo manages to do this, but he stops when a Knox priest suddenly enters the cage and locks the door behind him. This cultist, simply named Big Man, easily dispatches Pumguang with a back fist when the hardworking martial artist tries to attack him from behind. He then sets his eyes on Jang Mi, who has no choice but to defend against his energy blast. Seeing this, Ryo springs into action and shows just how much of a problem he is, as he lunges at Big Man and hits the Knox priest with a hard overhand right that sends him reeling. Ryo's attack knocks away Big Man's cloak to reveal that he's a living skeleton. The Knox priest then uses his powers to raise skeleton warriors from the ground, ordering them to kill each and every one of his enemies. Back at Mansuk's team, the 3 superbly talented martial artists go on a coordinated assault against Sagat. The priest notices that their teamwork has improved since their earlier clash. All the while, Mansuk berates himself for letting his fear get the best of him, allowing his mind to even consider running away from the fight. But this thought just serves to further his resolve and decide that he'll fight against these cultists to the end. All the while, Sagat tells Mansuk's group that he made a mistake earlier. He mistook someone else to be this team's leader. The Knox priest uses his hat as a weapon and hurls it at the 3, with the intention of striking down whom he thinks is the boss of this crew. Sagat gives us his big reveal when he points at none other than the sexy, flamboyant Gyeomji, telling him that he thinks he's the leader of this group before gearing up for an attack. The Knox priest prepares to blast Gyeomji with energy, but the slick, chaotic martial artist beats him to the punch, as Gyeomji turns his trenchcoat into a jagged blade to impale Sagat. In a flashback, Gyeomji's master tells him that although he was already an impressive fighter, he can surpass his limits if he fully communed with the god from which he draws his borrowed power. He thinks that Gyeomji's overly individualistic personality is what gives him strength, but it is this same quality that hinders him from truly reaching his potential. His master adds that if he got out of his own way, meaning if Gyeomji started to think of anyone aside from himself, the mohawk-clad martial artist has the potential to be a goat. But come on guys, this is Gyeomji, so of course he didn't pay attention to his mentor's lessons. In the present, Sagat manages to save himself in the nick of time by summoning his magical hand to attack Gyeomji and give the Knox priest an opening to remove the blade stuck to his side. Gyeomji dodges the hat, all the while hearing a mysterious voice speaking to him and telling him what to do. The voice tells the punk fighter to use his coat to slash Sagat, and he does, which forces the priest to defend against a flurry of sharp strikes. The voice then tells Gyeomji to wait and find an opening before turning his trenchcoat into a bladed whirlwind. However, he gets overwhelmed and inadvertently cancels the technique mid-launch. Pandora, Mansuk, and even Sagat pause as they wonder what's going on with Gyeomji, who starts to take off his coat and realize that the voice is coming from it. Gyeomji asks who's talking to him, and the voice says that he is the source of his borrowed power. The voice then tells him that all Gyeomji needs to do is listen if he wants to become more powerful. But again, this is Gyeomji, so he basically tells the god in his coat to shut his mouth because he doesn't need anyone's help. According to Gyeomji himself, he's the coolest guy in Cheongnam, as he flexes and marvels at his own physique. This distracts him enough and fails to notice that Sujin has caught him in her sights, and all the borrowed power from Gyeomji's coat disappears as the Knox bishop uses her sealing technique on it. It's too late before Gyeomji notices that his coat has just become a mere garment, and the voice he was speaking to earlier, it tells him he'll never see them again. Still, Gyeomji doesn't care. He basically scratches his head and shrugs it off. Back inside the cage, Ryu and his companions are busy fending off an unending horde of skeleton warriors coming their way. A couple of the prisoners notice that they're fighting an original sin and ore according to one of Myoho's old edicts. All the while, Big Man gets impatient and summons more skeletons to directly emerge from below Ryu and his friends to subdue them before lunging at the young monkeys to finish the job. But Mho rushes in and punches Big Man so hard that it crushes the ground beneath them. All the Knox priests can utter before Mho finishes him off with a stomp to the back of the skull is how much of a cheeky monkey the false king has been. With Big Man out of the way, the prisoners see their old king and kneel before Mho, pleading him to save them. Axley, Saturn, and another Knox priest named Quattro see this and mock Mho for trying to pretend to be a king again. The former ruler of Ore ignores them as Wu Chi launches a surprise attack and calls on a platoon of oxen warriors to attack the priests, urging his kin to take vengeance for Uma's death. Loud explosions from the oxen warriors' energy blast shake the foundations of the cages. As for Mho, he uses the ensuing chaos to spot Sujin and proceed with his mission of taking back the Monkey King's gourd. However, he stops in his tracks when Axley blasts the ground in front of him. Daewee interferes and hits Axley with his patented Black Turtle Fist technique that the Knox priest barely dodges. While all this is happening, Sujin continues to channel the Dragon Ridge's power and absorb the citizen of Ore's life force. However, her concentration wavers when she's reminded of her past. Axley sizes up Daewee and asks him if he's alone, to which the karate master says no. In that instant, Go-Gamdo swoops in for a quick strike and Axley has no choice but to activate his wings and fly back. In the meantime, Mho continues to rush towards Sujin. He doesn't notice that far off in the distance, Saturn has him in the crosshairs of her trademark crucifix rifle. Little does she know that Mira is hiding behind one of the cages, preparing to intercept Saturn's attack when she pulls the trigger. But it's a double fake, because Saturn notices Mira and points her rifle at the Moonlight Sword Master. Before she could pull the trigger though, Lee Hyung-dan jumps in and ruins her rifle's trajectory with her acupuncture needles. Gamdo and Daewee proceed to double-team Axley, who can barely keep up with the successive strikes the two martial artists are unleashing his way. The Knox priest counterattacks only miss, as Daewee and Gamdo perfectly attack him in sync. The two only lose their momentum when Axley gets desperate and unleashes a wild energy blast to knock them away. He then lunges at Gamdo, dragging the Tai Chi user away as he flies. Axley thinks he has their game plan in check, but Gamdo finesses his wings with Tai Chi Xuan, Chongyang Shu to block his energy flow and make the Knox priest lose his balance mid-flight. They come crashing down and Daewee's right there in front of Axley to capitalize on the opportunity and hit him with Kyokushin Karate, Dance of the White Tiger, which makes the Knox priest's head bounce like a pinball. Daewee's not done either, because he immediately follows up with his Blue Dragon Wave technique to seal the deal. But before he can unleash it, Daewee stops when he notices that his whole midsection has been slashed, as Axley has just summoned his sword Durandal in a last-ditch attempt to fight back. It works, but Axley fails to notice that Gamdo already had his palms flushed on the Knox priest's back, and he unleashes his ultimate technique, Yin Yang Ohang Yang. Before the technique connects, however, Axley is able to drive Durandal into Gamdo's stomach. The Knox priest pulls his sword out and gets ready to split the downed Gamdo in half, but Daewee comes in clutch and encases Axley using his borrowed power, Heite Bubble Bubble, to stop Durandal mid-slash. Sujin notices that Daewee has just used his borrowed power, so she turns her gaze toward him and seals Heite, causing Bubble Bubble to disappear and allow Axley to regain his slash's momentum. Durandal is just an inch away from delivering Gamdo the killing blow when he suddenly gets encased in another Bubble Bubble, making Durandal bounce off its protective barrier. Axley turns his head to see that a giant version of Daewee's Heite has appeared in front of him. Axley's confused. Daewee shouldn't be able to use his borrowed power now that Sujin has sealed it, but the Kyokushin Karate Master reveals that 1. This isn't Heite, it's Heite's mother, and 2. This isn't borrowed power anymore, because he directly summoned the Divine Beast to aid them in this fight. And guess what? Mama's about to put this Knox priest in a body bag, as the sacred animal launches a huge energy beam from its mouth that hits Axley at point-blank range. Somewhere else, Sang Manduk falls victim to good old-fashioned bureaucracy when he arrives at the Noxus King's chamber for his scheduled appointment, only for the gatekeeper to basically tell him that the king is busy right now. But Manduk won't let his time go to waste, so he uses this opportunity to check in on what's going on with Sujin's mission. He asks the gatekeeper how much energy the Dragon Ridge has absorbed from the monkeys, and the gatekeeper tells him that it's currently at 85%. However, she tells Manduk that the extraction has slowed down, surmising that it's mostly likely because of Sujin's mental health issues. Manduk knows about this, so he orders the gatekeeper to patch him through to Sujin. The Knox Bishop then connects to Sujin and tells her to speed things up. Once she's done sucking up all the energy they need from Ore citizens, she can come back home. And most importantly, he tells her to deliver him Jishun Desong, Jin Mori himself. Now, you might be wondering what Mori's been up to ever since he got sucked into the Monkey King's gourd. And if you thought he was just laying dormant the whole time, then you have another thing coming. Because it turns out, Jin Mori is finally starting to remember his past as the original Monkey King, and he does not like what he sees during his reminiscence. We witness the climax of the Great War that the Monkey King waged against the gods of the Heavenly Realm ages ago. During that pivotal moment, the Monkey King's subjects offered their life force in order to give him enough strength to enter the Heavenly Realm and destroy it. It worked too, because the Monkey King ended up flatlining gods and Nephilims like they were lemmings when he got there, destroying the sacred structures of their world and searching for the nine-tailed fox along the way. In fact, he got so deep into the Heavenly Realm that he was able to reach his 32nd level during his path of destruction. Ultimately, the Monkey King found out that the nine-tailed fox was expelled from the heavens, and shortly after that, one of his loyal subjects reached out to him to call for his help in the war going on in the Sage Realm, where his army is getting trounced by the gods Nephilim. But instead of coming back to his people, the Monkey King let himself become absorbed by bloodlust and battle hunger that he ended up continuing his massacre of the gods. As a result, the soldiers of Or, who had already been weakened when they gave parts of their life force to their king, got massacred by the god's army. In the present, Mori can only reflect on how much of a crappy king he was as he sits in the middle of the void inside his gourd. Back in the capital's ruins, Mho faces off against another Knox priest named Schneider, where the former false king has the upper hand. Schneider calls for help, and Big Man rises from the ground to subdue Mho, telling him that crushing his skull like he did earlier wasn't enough to kill the undead Knox priest. Mho manages to free himself by grabbing onto Big Man and hurling him towards Schneider before following up with his Hua art, Final Secret Slash. It hits Big Man and the bag of bones gets dismantled, but the undead Knox priest is able to immediately reconstruct himself as he prepares to attack Mho again. In the meantime, the former stablemaster of War notices that the citizens of War are dying like flies because of the Dragon Ridge, and all he can do right now is make sure to end his duel with the priest quickly to save all the ones that remain. Big Man knows that Mho cares about his people, so he chooses to add insult to injury and use his powers of necromancy to raise the dead monkeys as his thralls. And if that's not enough, the skeletal Knox priest crosses the line and raises Mho's long-dead little sister back from the dead. But here's the thing. Big Man is wrong to think that these zombified versions of the people that Mho loved are enough to throw him off his game. The former King of War summons a black flash of energy that cleaves the ground in front of him along with the undead monkeys about to attack Mho. He remembers another time during his youth, when Knox Bishop Byron gave him the Monkey King's gourd. At that time, he saw something else inside the Knox armory. Mho asked Byron what it was, but even the bishop didn't know. Regardless, he gave it to the young Mho then, and it's revealed that this is the quote-unquote fake yoibo he's been using all along. In the present, Mho has summoned this mystical weapon to his side. Suddenly, Knox priest Sagat's magical hat comes zipping its way towards the former king, and he's too late to react as it hits him right in the back. It's revealed that Mho is pretty much the only remaining active member of the heroes group. Daewoo and Gamdo have been knocked out during their bout with Axley, Yeomji's team are down, Ryu's group are losing their battle against the Knox worshippers, while Lee Hyungdan tries to revive an unconscious Mira. In the meantime, Big Man is confused to see that there are two yoibo present at the battlefield, the one Mho is using, and Mori's original staff that's sticking out of the ground in the middle of the capital's ruins. But the Knox priest forgets about it when Mho recovers and gets ready to clash with him and his fellow cultists. They were about to lunge at the former Monkey King, but Sujin suddenly steps in and tells them to stop. The Knox bishop throws the gourd at Mho's feet and commands him to release Jin Mori. This confuses everyone, from Mho to the Knox priests. We get the big reveal that Sujin has her own motives not in line with her position as an Knox bishop. Mission be damned. All she wants is to fight Zhao Deshong, to fight the true Monkey King. She commands Big Man, Schneider, and Sagat to kill the rest, but the skeletal priest refuses the order, telling Sujin that's not their mission. Sujin then answers by telling her priest that insubordination will be met with death. Hearing this, Big Man brands Sujin as a traitor and attacks his superior, but the Knox bishop easily seals away his borrowed power, revealing that Big Man is just a mere human Knox priest after all. Still, Big Man wouldn't give up. He tries to swing at Sujin, but the purple-haired bishop effortlessly breaks his arm with a well-placed kick to the elbow before knocking him out. A flashback reveals Lee Sujin's origins. It turns out that she originally was from North Korea, born and raised within one of its brutal labor camps due to her family being branded as traitors to its regime. And it's here that we circle back to the Jin Taejin Arc, as it's implied that Lee Sujin is actually the granddaughter of the North Korean spy that Taejin made a promise to decades before the events of the series. The same North Korean spy who had divulged the secrets of ITF Taekwondo to South Korea, Lee Soo-hyuk. Sujin's life at the labor camp was, of course, hellish to say the least. She regularly saw North Korean guards abusing her mother, which ultimately led to the woman's death. But before passing away, Sujin's mom told her that their circumstances could only be blamed on one culprit, South Korea. This piece of information made Sujin grow into a vengeful adult, and back at the present, she tells the now depowered big man and all the other priests about her ultimate goal, to destroy the South as revenge for what it did to her family. Schneider and Sagan mobilize after seeing Sujin take out their comrade. They've all turned on Sujin and start to rush the turncoat Knox bishop. Of course, the wielder of Pandora's power notices this and activates her sealing abilities. At that moment, Sang Mandok and the other Knox cultists inside the king's chambers can feel the Dragon Ridge's energy transference coming to a halt. The gatekeeper informs them that it, and Sujin, stopped absorbing life force from the monkeys. Ultimately, they've gathered 85% of the energy they were expecting to siphon off the monkeys. It's not exactly complete, but it's more than enough for Mandok, as he declares that the seal preventing humans from killing gods has been undone thanks to this. Suddenly, a Knox worshipper rushes into the room to report that Sujin has betrayed their organization. Mandok feigns disbelief, but he thinks that everything is going according to his plan, which was to bring Sujin into this mission and allow her childhood trauma to ultimately lead to the removal of the god-killing seal placed on humanity. Back in the Sage Realm, Sujin has now fully channeled her Pandora form and just finished dispatching Schneider and Sagat. She tells them that she's not planning on killing them today, so they should just take the L and call themselves even. In the distance, Axley desperately attempts to escape from Heite's mother as the large divine beast shoots him with energy blasts. The battle-damaged priest is then taken by surprise when a giant sword falls from the sky, as Mandok watches from Nox's home base and declares that Daewee and his friends cannot avoid the judgment of the gods. The giant sword crashes into the ground of the capital's ruins, killing scores of both Oxen warriors and Nox worshippers alike. The impact is so strong that Mewhu, Ryu, and the rest of the heroes are sent flying. Shortly after, Axley bows to someone arriving on the battlefield, saying how much of an honor it is to speak to a real god. This as-yet unrevealed presence is so imposing that even Heite's mother whimpers when they see it. A giant vessel suddenly appears above Or's ruined capital, blocking out the sky as it slowly descends upon everyone on the ground. Heite's mother, Sujin, and every combatant in the war between Knox and the heroes group can only pause in shock to stare at it, the Heavenly Castle Sky Whale. As the name implies, it's literally a giant whale with a fortress sitting on its back. The creature circles the battlefield, all the while releasing an ear-splitting noise with its cries. On the castle's ramparts, a Nephilim from the heavenly realm summons a sword, preparing to strike down those below. Before it can pull off its attack, however, the Oxen army launches a preemptive strike with their magic, hitting the gigantic deity with energy blasts to its face. They continuously barrage the pale angel, which makes the Oxen warriors think that they have the upper hand. But at that moment, more giant-sized Nephilim suddenly manifest at the edges of the heavenly castle, filling all its ramparts with sword-wielding executioners ready to strike down their enemies. They throw their sword down to the ground in unison, which causes a devastating explosion that shakes the entirety of the Sage Realm. The impact is so huge that even the wildlife of the realm start to flee for their lives. Even Sage Realm dragons, who are airborne creatures, attempt to fly away as soon as they see spheres of white light enveloping the ruins of Or's capital. Back at the battlefield, Sujin and the surviving combatants, such as Ryu and the other Orguk monkeys, witness the aftermath of Nephilim's attack. They literally went scorched earth on the capital's ruins, as hundreds of gigantic swords stick out from the ground, each surrounded by the charred remains of hundreds of Nox members, ape men, and Oxen warriors alike. And they're the lucky ones, because those left alive are either badly injured or trapped underneath rubble. Even worse, hot molten lava slowly makes its way toward them after the ground spewed it when the Nephilim swords rained down upon the capital. The remaining Oxen warriors desperately tried to rescue the injured, from Daewee to Gamdo to the poor citizens of the Monkey Kingdom. Above the skies, the Sage Realm's dragons form a fleet to defend their home against the gods and their giant whale, but they prove no match for these so-called divine enemies. On the ground, a random monkey citizen sees the chaos happening around him and wonders if this is truly the end times. Somewhere else in the capital's ruins, Mewhu musters all his remaining energy to try to get back on his feet and protect his people. The impact from the Nephilim's attack earlier knocked the Monkey King's gourd off his hand, but he tries with all his might to summon it again with his power. The gourd manifests in his hand, but one of the Nephilim above sees this and immediately launches a giant sword to crush Mewhu. However, Sujin just arrives in the nick of time to catch the gigantic blade with her palms before it could kill the former king. Sujin then tells Mewhu to hurry up and release Jin Mori from the gourd before using her strength to break the blade's tip and launch it back to its owner, striking the angel right in the head and killing it. She tells Mewhu that her goal remains the same. All she wants is to duel Jin Mori one-on-one. To her, Mori, like Jin Taejin, represents the one thing she has sworn to take revenge on: South Korea. Mho follows Sujin's orders and raises his gourd-holding hand, ready to release Jin Mori from the void. But just as he was uttering the incantation to do this, a gigantic sledgehammer drops down on the former leader of the monkeys and squashes him like a bug. Sujin and the monkeys of war can only stare in shock as they witness the death of the former ruler of the Ape Kingdom. All that remains of Mho now is his blood-splattered gourd, while off in the distance, a voice tells everyone that this fake Monkey King was a wanted criminal of heaven, sentenced to die. And now that sentence has been passed, they turn their attention to Lee Sujin, sentencing her with the death penalty as well. Her crime? The unauthorized release of the seals that allow humans to kill gods. The voice makes itself known, and we get introduced to the deities known as the Three Princes of Natak, gods of combat, as they stand on the heavenly castle's ramparts together. On the ground, Wu Chi and the surviving oxen warriors continue their rescue efforts and flee from the lava flowing their way. Wu Chi rouses his comrades' spirits, telling everyone that they have to survive any way they can, as that was the late King Uma's last wish. Sujin spots the three combat gods standing atop their heavenly castle. She secures the Monkey King's gourd to her belt, as the eldest of the three gods of combat, Arden, tells her to surrender. Sujin can feel the overbearing pressure that these gods exude even by their mere presence alone, but she doesn't back down. Instead, she answers Arden by trying to launch an attack with her right eye, but the combat god blocks this. Arden notices that there's something special about Sujin, so he asks his younger brother, Lot, if she happens to be a key, to which Lot says that she is. The younger combat god warns Arden not to take her lightly too, telling him that all it takes for each one of them to lose their powers is if their crown gets knocked away from their head. In the meantime, Sujin tries to assess the battlefield. She knows that going against these three gods alone would spell certain defeat for her. So, Sujin thinks of escaping. However, the youngest combat god, Jwala, suddenly teleports behind her the moment she makes a move. Jwala tells her that trying to escape her sentence would just make it worse for Sujin. But then again, Jwala realizes that there's already nothing worse than being sentenced to death. The former Knox bishop responds with a swift roundhouse kick, but Jwala dodges and slips past her. The next thing Sujin knows, Jwala has already swiped the Monkey King gourd from her hip and has delivered it straight to Arden. The eldest combat god notices that his youngest brother didn't escape the encounter with Sujin unscathed, as Jwala's arm gets nearly severed from Sujin's kick, which he thought he dodged. At that moment, the former Knox bishop lunges at Arden and gives the eldest combat god a high kick. Arden blocks it and counters with a right straight, which prompts Sujin to use her Pandora reflect technique to throw it back. Arden's punch misses the mark, and the force coming from it explodes far in a distance behind Sujin. The combat god is amused that his strike didn't land. On the other hand, Sujin is shocked to find out that her technique was only able to change the punch's trajectory by a bit instead of actually sending it back to Arden. Meanwhile, Lot helps reattach Jwala's arm and heal his brother using his ice powers. He tells Jwala that without him, another one of Sujin's abilities would be a problem. If she touches you, that part of your body will start to rot, so you'll have to amputate it. Still, Lot was able to save Jwala's arm amidst his baby brother's whining. Back at Arden, he inspects the gourd and wonders if the Monkey King is really inside it. He cocks back his right fist for a punch and attempts to destroy the artifact. Sujin tries to stop him, but Jwala teleports in front of her for another round before she can get to the eldest combat god. Arden strikes down the gourd with his charged fist, but to his surprise, nothing happens. At the same time, Jwala tries to incinerate Sujin with his flame magic, but she dodges this and gears up for a high kick. Nothing comes of her counterattack though, because Lot suddenly appears behind her and freezes her light before encasing in a giant iceberg to fully subdue their opponent. Sujin is trapped for a second, but brute forces her way out of Lot's trap, crushing the magical iceberg and nearly connecting with a roundhouse kick aimed at Lot. Jwala tries to lop off Sujin's head with a flaming chop from behind, but she counters it with a reverse up kick. She hits Jwala right in the chin, but this leaves her open for Lot to reappear in front of her and use his ice powers to freeze Sujin's body. Jwala jumps back in to deliver the killing blow, but the youngest god of combat's head starts bouncing back and forth like a ping-pong ball right after hearing three words, Samsu Taekyun. Jwala recoils as his brothers stare in disbelief at what they've just witnessed, because a short distance away, Park Yilpa has arrived, and he's not the same Taekyun master we knew from before. He calls for Foxfire Rain to descend upon Arden and Lot, and the two combat gods barely block Yilpo's opening salvo. Jwala fails to defend himself though, and gets engulfed with Ilpo's Foxfire attack. On the ground, Sujin notices this new combatant as Ilpo rushes in behind Jwala before summoning a gigantic flaming fox head to devour the combat god. She sees Ilpo landing on the ground after making Jwala look like an absolute scrub, and we get the big reveal. Park Ilpo is now a fully transformed demigod after forming a direct contract with the nine-tailed fox back at Oraguk. Suddenly, Sujin lunges at Ilpo and starts barraging him with punches and kicks. He doesn't fight back even when Sujin knocks her down. Instead, Ilpo asks the woman in front of her why she's attacking him, to which Sujin replies it's because his jacket has the emblem of Jin Tae-jin, another one of her sworn South Korean enemies. In the meantime, Arden finally takes the battle seriously and designates Sujin and Ilpo as first-level threats. He tells his subordinates to not underestimate these enemies and gives out an order for his Nephilim to eliminate all the remaining survivors of war. The gigantic angels proceed to start wreaking havoc on the ground, chopping and stomping the remaining Sage Realm citizens unfortunate enough to find themselves in their path. Back at Sujin's, Ilpo tells her that his and her goals right now align, to free Jin Mori, so it would be in their best interest to form a temporary alliance against these Heavenly Realm interlopers. Sujin agrees and they prepare to attack the gods of combat. Some distance away, Jwala recovers, and he is now pumped up to go all out against their targets. He uses his powers to summon more lava that will devour everyone in the area. On the ground, Wu Qi and his men desperately try to find an escape path. But all hope is sucked out of him when he looks up and sees that Jwala has summoned a flame serpent called Lava Bahamut to engulf them all. At that moment, a small flash of light appears on the ground as Beck utters the words, "Come, plantain flower," and his patented baseball bat starts to form bright mystic feathers around it. Curiously enough, a glowing bull emblem now emblazons the sleeve of his track jacket. Jwala launches Lava Bahamut, but Beck swings his newly acquired plantain flower to meet it, instantly eradicating the giant flaming serpent, slicing up Nephilim and leaving Jwala frozen in place along the way. Plantain flower's cyclone dissipates, and when Wu Qi recovers, he's slack-jawed to see that there's a single giant horn growing out of the side of Beck's head. Because remember when he and Uma got blasted by a horde of Nephilim earlier? Yeah guys, they didn't kill Beck and the Oxen King, as it's revealed that the two formed a direct contract with each other. So, Uma didn't really die. Their soul just transferred to Beck, who now wields the magnificent power of the Oxen King. And in true Beck fashion, he tells Uma in his trademark deadpan way that he doesn't like the fact that this contract involves having a weird horn grow out of him while another voice speaks inside his head. That's the end of the Jin Taejin and Sage Realm arcs, guys. Personally, we simply love how God of High School wears its influences on its sleeve to craft a smorgasbord of amazing manhwa goodness. Plus, it's one of the most exciting series out there too, as you can tell by all the status quo changes, reveals, and power escalations we've seen in these arcs. And honestly, we absolutely love doing this video for you guys, so we hope you like it. But what do you think? How are you liking God of High School so far? Who's your favorite character? And would you like to see us do more of these videos in the future? Let us know what you think in the comments section. It'll really help us a lot. And please don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications for more amazing anime, manga, and manhwa content. We'll catch you soon.